Oh, jeez Louise. Oh, jeez Louise. I'm a dummy. Preemptively hitting stream. Preemptively. I'm like sitting here being like, I know I'm forgetting something. I know I'm forgetting something. What am I forgetting? Oh well. I'm sure it'll manifest the moment I hit stream, and sure enough, it manifests the moment I hit stream. Just give me 1 second. Just need to get the Twitch people all set up. This also allows me to sort of see myself as I'm streaming. So I know if anything's gone wrong or anything's happening. I'm worried that something has gone wrong already and that things are not actually happening. Twitch people. Are they people? Conton, good to see you, my man. Hope you're doing well out there. This last 2 weeks has been full of drama. Full of total drama. What you're seeing on the screen here is me, is a picture that was taken while I was setting up my beehives. Setting up my beehives, finally got them all set up. It was quite a adventure. It was quite a thing. It's happening on an island. So we're setting it up on an island, and the boat that we were meant to use to ferry us across on the island decided to not work. It just broke. And so that put us all into this big tizzy to get things organized and get things moving and get things happening. And then while we were in this tizzy of getting all that set up, one of the other people living on the island offered their boat to us, and it just solved the problem completely. But then in the midst of all of this, the beekeeper contacts us and says, hey, I'd like an extra week to really build up the hives a little bit more. And this puts me in a bit of a tizzy because it's taken us so much work to get the beehives all set up and to get everything going on. And then all of a sudden, we get over there and I take a look, and this tree that you're seeing right here, all of these white dots you see all around this tree, those are all flowers. And there are 5 of these, and that's not even including the dandelions that are all over the property and all that. And the moment I see this tree, I contact the beekeeper and I'm like, I'm taking these hives, I'm taking them now. And we get it all set up. So we even got it all worked out so that I could get off the island before the sun went down. So it was all perfectly timed out. And now the hives are sitting out there. I'm going to go back up, I think, next week to really work them and really get them sorted out. And he's planting like some raspberry bushes, some blueberry bushes. So that's been a true blessing. It was a wild storm to get it all set up. It was a wild experience to get it all set up. Mark Jr., good to see you. Garden State, yeah. By the way, changed my username. Good to see you, bud. Gabriel, good to see you. Austin, good to see you too, guys. So I feel like I'm in kind of a blessed moment. I'm having like a real blessing of a experience, even though it's been a bit tumultuous. And while I'm talking about blessing, for some reason the Twitch stream's not working. You guys can all see me okay, right? Like, there's no surprises, no mysteries. You're not all scratching your heads. You're not just being polite, right? Everything's working fine. I feel like everything was working fine. I don't know why this isn't working. It'd be a real shame if I couldn't get the Twitch stream up and running right now. Well, in any case, I think I'll move forward without it. It's fine. The big news, the thing that's been weighing on me for the longest time during this period of time, because I skipped last week because my mom was in town and everything was so ridiculous. But the thing that's definitely been weighing on me, and the thing that I'm hoping to see action on, and the thing I'm hoping to see all of us kind of get our heads out of our asses about and get a little bit more serious about, and it looks like we are getting more serious about it, is of course the Palestinian genocide. I usually don't start with this subject, but today I think I'm going to, because it seems to me as though world opinion is starting to shift. That the world is beginning to see what's been in front of them the whole time. and that there's no defense left. Israel has no defense left. It can't defend itself anymore. And the active starvation, right? The active starvation. There's just no way to starve someone in self-defense. You can't. There's no defensive action that leads to someone's starvation, right? And they're very obviously keeping the Palestinians in a state of genocide. Their plan is to eradicate them and exterminate them. They're talking about going back into Gaza. And of course, it's all a fool's errand, because the Israelis can't win. Like, they can't win. There's a beautiful article that I found published in Middle East Eye. Israel has already lost the Gaza war. It just doesn't know it yet. As with Vietnam, 2 factors will end this slaughter: the determination of Palestinians to stay on their land and mounting public outrage in the West. This is written by a fellow by the name of David Hurst. In the latest episode of the TV game show, The White House on Uber, How to Pre-Purchase a U.S. President, it appeared fleetingly as if the host was reading from the right script. U.S. President Donald Trump said in Saudi Arabia that liberal interventionism was a disaster. That's true. He said you can't break and remake nations. Post-Soviet Russia, Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, and Yemen are each testimony to that. He stopped bombing Yemen and reversed decades of sanctions on Syria, blocking in the process 2 of Israel's key routes to regional dominance, dividing Syria and starting a war with Iran. I say fleetingly because, as Iran has been through this script many times before in negotiations over its nuclear program, what a U.S. president promises and what he delivers are 2 different things. Not least of those, to be blindsided by Trump's announcement halting Syria sanctions, were his own officials in the U.S. Treasury. It turns out that the cessation of the multi-layered sanctions piled on Syria since the U.S. first put the country on its list of state-sponsored of terrorism in 1979 is not so easy, nor will it be rapid or comprehensive. There is the Caesar Syria Civilian Protection Act, which requires Congress to overturn it, although Trump could suspend parts of it for national security reasons. The sanctions themselves, a mix of executive orders and statutes, could take months to unwind. There is scope for more handbrake turns. This particular episode of the show cost its sponsors, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Qatar, staggering sums of money, more than $3 trillion and counting, which is high even by the standards of the Gulf. Deadly mission. There was $600 billion from Saudi Arabia, $1.2 trillion worth of deals with Qatar, a personal 747 for use as president, a tower for Trump's son Eric in Dubai, and much more to come, including cryptocurrency deals with the Trump family firm World Liberty Financial. The richest Arabs were competing with each other to lay tribute at the feet of Washington's latest emperor. While this orgiastic display of wealth was taking place in Riyadh and Doha, Israel was marking the anniversary of the 1948 Nakba by killing as many Palestinians as it could in Gaza. Wednesday was one of the bloodiest days in Gaza since Israel's unilateral abandonment of the ceasefire. Nearly 100 people were killed. Bunker-busting bombs were dropped near the European hospital in Khan Yunis, a strike aimed at Mohammed Sinwar, the de facto leader of Hamas in Gaza. His death has not been confirmed. Like the assassination of the late Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran, Israel was targeting a key negotiator at a time when it was purporting to negotiate. My sources tell me that just before Israel resumed its attacks on the 18th of March, the political leadership of Hamas abroad had accepted a deal with the Americans that would have led to more hostages being released in return for an extension of the ceasefire. but with no guarantee of an end to the war. But Sinwar rejected it, and accordingly, it did not go ahead. If indeed Sinwar is dead, it will take time to reestablish secure communications within Hamas with one of several men who could now step into his shoes. His attempted or actual killing is proof, if any more is needed, that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has no intention of bringing the remaining hostages home alive. A hostage deal needs Hamas forces to retain command and control. A guerrilla fight needs none. Netanyahu's mission in Gaza, which is to starve and bomb as many of the 2.1 billion Palestinians out of the enclave as he can, has become so clear, so obvious, that not even the misnamed international community can now ignore it. Tom Fletcher, the UN Undersecretary General for Humanitarian Affairs, told the Security Council, "For those killed and those whose voices are silenced, what more evidence do you need now? Will you act decisively to prevent genocide and to ensure respect for international humanitarian law?" French President Emmanuel Macron called Israel's policy in Gaza shameful. Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez called Israel a genocidal state while speaking in Parliament, noting that Madrid does not do business with such a country. Massive betrayal. But not one word of public condemnation about Israel's behavior in Gaza was spoken to Trump from the lips of Mohammed bin Salman, the crown prince and de facto ruler of Saudi Arabia, nor from UAE President Mohammed bin Zayed or Qatari Emirate Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani. The charade in the Gulf was a massive betrayal for Palestinians, but as they know only too well, Arab rulers have a track record of abandoning them. In the past, they waited a few decent months or years after military defeat to do so. It took a while after the 1967 war for Arab leaders to talk about a peaceful solution for the occupied West Bank and Gaza. Today, they're abandoning the true heroes of the Arab world as they are being starved and bombed to death. Hamas and Hezbollah have both been severely weakened, although I question whether the blows they have received are terminal. But Hamas is still fighting on the ground, as the underreported Israeli military death toll in Gaza continues to show. No single guard has given up their hostage to save their own life. The spirit of resistance in Gaza has not been defeated. In fact, the parallels with another historic defeat of colonial forces, the French and the Americans, have only grown stronger. In one sense, there's no comparison between Gaza and the Vietnam War. The force Israel uses today in Gaza dwarfs that used by John F. Kennedy, Lyndon B. Johnson, and Richard Nixon, the three U.S. presidents whose terms were doomed by Vietnam. In a span of 8 years, the U.S. dropped more than 5 million tons of bombs on Vietnam, making it the most bombed place on Earth. By January of this year, Israel had dropped at least 100,000 tons of bombs on Gaza. Put another way, the U.S. dropped around 15 tons of explosives per square kilometer on Vietnam, while Israel has dropped 275 tons per square kilometer of Gaza, a figure that is higher by a factor of 18. That being said, other points of comparison hit you between the eyes about a war that scars the U.S. to this day and the current war in Gaza, which Netanyahu is set to deepen by attempting to reoccupy the territory permanently. Crushing déjà vu. The current generation of war watchers can only experience a crushing sense of déjà vu when they watch the painstakingly complete account of the conflict in the new miniseries Turning Point, the Vietnam War. The since acknowledged futility of the U.S. military campaign against the Viet Cong is mirrored and amplified by the Israeli military's attempt to wipe Hamas off the map. As U.S. involvement in the Vietnam War expanded and Washington had to drop the pretense that more than 16,000 troops and pilots were advising the South Vietnamese army, it became clear to both Washington and Saigon that they were going to have to push the Viet Cong out of the countryside and regain government control of around 12,000 hamlets. Probably nothing turned the villagers in South Vietnam against the U.S. and their own government in Saigon faster than the Strategic Hamlet Program. These were fortified settlements where villagers who had been turned out of their ancestral lands by U.S. troops would be forced to resettle. In the jargon of the newsreel at the time, the villagers could start a new life, purged of the communists. As Thomas Bass, author of Vietnamerica, The War Comes Home, put it, you have these entire regions that would be declared a zone that was open for attack. Closely allied to this was another assumption of the U.S. pacification program, the father of today's counterinsurgency. This was born out of the problems U.S. soldiers had in distinguishing civilians from combatants. The solution lay in treating any Vietnamese encountered a declared free fire zone as the enemy, and opening fire without referring up the chain of command. One former U.S. Marine said, "We were taught that all the Vietnamese were free to leave, and all the Vietnamese that stayed were part of the infrastructure of the Viet Cong. You just hunt for people and you kill them, and you can kill them however you want." Commanders were expected to come back with a high body count. All of those killed, women and children included, were treated as dead communists. I was told that if we killed 10 Vietnamese for every American, we would win, another Vietnam vet said. Villagers starved in their Viet Cong-free encampments because they lost access to their paddy fields. The main aim, however, was not to feed them, but to clear the countryside. The result was that the villagers fled, and the Viet Cong came ever closer to the cities. At one point, up to 70% of the villagers who volunteered to join the Viet Cong were women. Tran Thi Yen Ngoc from the National Liberation Front said, "They called us the Viet Cong, but we were the Liberation Army. We were all comrades and considered ourselves one family. When one person fell, 5 or 7 others stepped forward." Terrible chaos. There are 2 other similarities between today and 1968. The protests and vicious levels of repression on U.S. campuses and the extent to which the Americans and Israeli militaries felt they had to dehumanize their enemy before committing atrocities. After the 1968 My Lai massacre, in which around 500 armed and innocent civilians were killed in the span of just a few hours, American Commander General William Westmoreland said that life is cheap to the Vietnamese. The Oriental doesn't put the same high price on life as it does a Westerner. Israeli leaders go much further than Westmoreland did. They call Palestinians human animals. Indeed, all this history from decades ago sounds eerily pertinent to the present day in Gaza and the occupied West Bank. In an interview on the 29th of October 2023, only weeks into the war, Goria Island, a retired Major General Reserve, said Israel should not allow aid into the territory. The fact that we are breaking down in the face of humanitarian aid to Gaza is a serious mistake. Gaza must be completely destroyed. Terrible chaos, severe humanitarian crisis, cries to heaven. He later reasoned, all of Gaza will starve. And when Gaza starves, then hundreds of thousands of Palestinians will be angry and annoyed. And hungry people, they are the ones who will bring about a coup against Yahya Sinwar. And that is the only thing that bothers him. Nothing of the sort happened, but Island's reasons became known as the General's Plan, which was first applied to northern Gaza, where 400,000 Palestinians remained. The plan to empty northern Gaza failed, as hundreds of thousands of people streamed back to their homes during the recent ceasefire, even though there was nothing left of them. One-way ticket. But the tactic of starving and clearing has found new life in Israel's current military operation, called Gideon's Chariots, in what Netanyahu has repeatedly called the final stage of the war. The plan is to force more than 2 million Palestinians into a new sterile area around Rafah. Palestinians will only be allowed entry after being checked by security forces, and it's a one-way ticket. They would never be able to return to their homes, which would be completely demolished. The Israeli army, in cooperation with the Shin Bet, Israel's domestic security agency, We'll set up checkpoints on the main roads that will lead to the areas where the Gazan civilians will be housed in the Rafah area, Niet said. Netanyahu said on Tuesday that he might accept a temporary ceasefire in Gaza, but would not commit to ending the war on the Palestinian enclave. What Vietnam did for LBJ and Nixon, Gaza will do for Netanyahu and his successor as prime minister, probably Naftali Bennett. For Netanyahu is much more ill from cancer than he is publicly acknowledged to be, according to sources in Britain who see him regularly. 2 factors ended the Vietnam War, and with it, more than a century of struggle to rid the country of a colonial master. The determination of the Vietnamese and public opinion on the U.S. The same 2 factors will lead to the Palestinian people to their own state. The determination of Palestinians to stay and die on their land and public opinion in the West, which is already turning rapidly against Israel. Watch it carefully. It is seeping into the right and is firmly established on the left. Labeling legitimate criticism of the genocide as anti-Semitic won't work anymore. That bolt has already been fired. It is both in Palestine and in the hearts and minds of the West from which the Zionist project grew, and on which it was so dependent, that this war is being fought. Israel may win each battle, as the Americans did in Vietnam, but it will still lose the war. Oh, man. Articles like this, man. That reminds me. Quick thing. And we're streaming. Should probably tell the Discord that I'm actually streaming. New CIA drone pilot over on Twitch. CIA drone pilot, if you're there, can you tell me if you can actually see the stream? For some reason, the stream is not actually streaming on my end on Twitch, but you commented, so I feel like you're seeing something. Let me know, dude. I don't know what's going on with Twitch. It is as it is. Jib Jabby, good to see you, my man. Missed you last week. I missed doing the stream too, but honestly, the truth is that I needed to... My mom was in town. I needed to actually spend time with her, and honestly, I needed a little bit of a break anyway. We have somebody over on Twitch by the name of Hamish P. Good to see you. Yeah, new CIA drone pilot says it's fine, so okay. I don't really understand what's going on. It's just not streaming for me, so I can't... oh, okay. All right, that'll be the last time I bring it up, because if you guys can see it, then that's all that matters to me. I don't need to see myself. Arab XD, good to see you, XD. Arab rulers are Western puppets to begin with. I mean, I do have to appreciate the situation that many of these people find themselves in. Like, the Americans will roll in and destroy your country, right? They destroyed Iraq, they destroyed Afghanistan, right? They will just roll in and mess you up. So they can't just like puff out their chest and say what the Americans have done is horrible and we're not going to do deals or we're not going to negotiate with them, because the Americans will just roll in and blow your shit up, right? Like, so I do have sympathy. I do. Like, you wish in an idyllic world full of raindrops and lollipops and sunshine and rainbows that these countries would be more forceful and more willing to stand up and more willing to do that. But given the sociopathic and psychopathic nature of the American military and its inability to understand like basic logic, like the basic logic of the military often says things like, we'll starve the people and that will lead them to overthrow. But what actually happens is that you starve the people and then it creates solidarity because everyone's like, we're being starved by these guys, right? Nobody overthrows their leader during those periods of times because everybody understands where it's coming from, right? And the leader is the person who's standing up against that and who is dealing directly with that. So the idea that that's going to lead to an overthrow is just detached completely from reality. But I mean, American leadership is primarily a religious ideology, right? Like there's no logic. There's nobody sitting there being like, we need to actually think about the world as it is, right? Like the Americans are constantly in this state of believing that they can shape the world in their own image. And it's like demonic. I, I don't know that using that kind of spiritualized language is useful, but it's the only thing I've got. Like, I don't have the language to describe this anymore. Like, these guys are evil on a level that becomes supernatural in a degree. Like, at any point, these guys could stand up and be like, maybe we should think about these people as if they're human beings, as if they're like people, but they just don't. Like, it's just deeply and darkly and evil. Hamish over on Twitch. Yeah, America just took all of Venezuela's gold in the Bank of England. Yeah, like, they don't give a fuck. So places like Saudi Arabia, places like Iran, right? They have to negotiate. They can't not. They have to. Joe, good to see you, my man. Hull, good to see you. Jib Jabby. Getting genocided knowing that no country is coming to save you must be extremely depressing. Yeah. Yeah. Like, I imagine it is. Like, and there are signs that the wheel is turning. There are signs that public opinion is turning away from Israel. Like, we have, like, the new Canadian foreign minister says Israel is using lack of food as a tool in Gaza. So here in Canada, we are speaking out. The UK, France, and Canada threaten action against Israel over Gaza. We also know that, Netanyahu cancels Vatican visits over fear of ICC arrest. So the noose is tightening. The noose is tightening around Israel as more and more people begin to see them for what they are, which is a Nazi force. To treat the Zionists like anything other than Nazis at this point is collaboration. Like, it is. It's just it's at best apologetics. That these people are Nazis, and there's just no reason to discuss them any other way. But the trouble with Nazism always has been that the noose tightens, and that the Nazis begin to step on too many toes, right? Ottawa summons Israeli ambassador after shots fired near Canadians, right? Like, Nazis have no, like, they believe in the hierarchical pecking order, right? Like, that's their whole ethos, is that pay homage to the bigger bully and then bully the people who are beneath you. Peanut Butter Beatrice, good to see you. Yep, their only logic is might makes right, caveman shit, exactly. Missed you too, Peanut Butter Beatrice. It was good to take a step back and deal with my own life, but it is nice to be streaming again. Mark writes, do you think the UN warrant for Netanyahu's arrest has helped arrange the discourse of Israel and Palestine change the discourse of Israel and Palestine in the mainstream? Yeah. I think every single little thing counts at this point. And, like, the ICC arrest warrant was a big turning point. But now we're actually having, like, I've seen clips of the conservatives, like the Tories, the people who are historically on the side of Israel, standing up in their parliaments and saying out loud, we got this one wrong. That we're coming to the table with an understanding that we were defending Israel and now we can't anymore. Like, what's happening now in Gaza, like, it is indefensible at this point. Like, anybody who over the last few years was actually attempting to defend Israel's right to self-defense. Like, Israel has the right to self-defense. Well, okay, there's no possible way to starve someone in self-defense. That's just not a real thing. And so what you're seeing more and more is that the voices that have been condemning Israel all along are getting louder and more reasonable and more rational and more obviously correct. And the people who are still defending Israel are Nazis and are obviously Nazis, very, very clearly Nazis. And the people who have been defending Israel are beginning to stand up and actually admit it and say, okay, we were wrong. Like, we were wrong. That's a huge political moment. Like, I cannot overstate the enormity. The most difficult thing for a single individual to do, let alone a massive organization to do, is confess that they were wrong. That's an enormous admission that I don't think can be overstated. And when you see NXD writes, still not going to forgive these people. Yeah, no, they have no credibility. Like, the fact that they're willing to admit that they're wrong and come on our side just means that they should cede power to us. And that should be our argument completely. Like, oh, so you were wrong and we were right, so you should step down and resign. Like, that would be my point, politically. Like, congratulations, thanks for getting on board. You know, we've been doing this for years now. Like, we were on the right side for years now, and now you're willing to admit it? Okay, cool, you should resign. You shouldn't have power. Like, the very fact that it's gotten so obvious that these people are Nazis, it's gotten so obvious that that's the case. Yeah, everybody who stood up and was defending these guys should simply close their mouths, resign, quit their jobs. They shouldn't speak anymore. Like, for years you looked at an open, obvious, very clear 1 + 1 = 2 genocide and you were defending it, and now it's just gotten so fucking obvious, and you have like the little tiniest bit of hindsight to be able to look at it and be like, oh shit, that is in fact a genocide. In fact it is, yes. Major gigantic organizations that we are internationally obliged to have said it's a genocide. The UN has said it's a genocide. The ICC has said it's a genocide. The ICJ has said it's a genocide. And we can't simply pretend like that doesn't matter. Like, the Prime Minister of England can't just say, no, the ICC is wrong. Like, it's just not how that works. Like, and places like the UK, France, Spain, Canada, like, we actually do believe in a concept called international law. We actually believe in this concept of international law. And this is a real moment where these countries are confronted with, okay, do we actually care about international law? Do we actually care? Like, if we all sit down at the table and draw up some agreements, are we actually going to follow those agreements? Or is it just the Wild West? And of course, if you're in America, it's just the Wild West. America doesn't believe in laws. There's no such thing as rule of law in America. It's just gangsterism at this point. If you are a country that actually stands up and passes laws that you expect to be followed, you get called authoritarian. Like, that's how they deal with people who actually pass laws and expect those laws to be followed. Right? They fearmonger about how, oh, they're passing laws and they expect those laws to be followed. Authoritarianism. Because here in America, we pass laws, but then we don't follow those laws. And the only people we expect to follow those laws are wage slaves. Right? So you have a two-tiered legal system where laws are passed for the wage slaves and the capitalists are never expected to follow them. And so every tiny little bit, to circle it back around to where we started, right? Do I think the UN warrant and do I think all that kind of stuff? Yes, I do. Like, yes, I do. I do think that it all counts and it all matters, and we have to become more outspoken. We have to go harder in the paint. Like, we have to, like, World War II ended with Hitler shooting himself in the face. Let's hope Benjamin Netanyahu has a similar fate. Darwin Fan 420 over on Twitch. What's going on? Good to see you, my man. Hope you're here to be beautiful. Hamish writes, yeah, Hegseth and Vance are Christian soldiers like the British Imperial military around the 1900s. Yeah. Like capitalism itself is the religious ideology. Like, it might have Christian trappings, but there's nothing Christian about these guys. Like, there's just absolutely nothing Christian about these guys. I'm even hearing rumors. This is rumors, so I don't have a document to show you, but I'm hearing rumors that the Pope is actually considering excommunicating Catholics within the Trump administration. Because, like, they have no business calling themselves Christians of any sort, let alone Catholics. Like, these people are obviously frauds. They're obviously charlatans. They don't care about Christ. They don't care about their Bible. It's so obvious that they don't. They don't read it. They don't know anything about it. And when they do read it, it's to cherry pick things that confirm their own bigotry and their bias. Yeah, more like Christian heretics. Yeah. The GOAT writes, UK, Canada, and France, so 3 liberal countries wag their finger at genocide, but will they actually do anything? Yeah, will they actually do anything? Well, according to the Marxists, right, Marxist.ca, liberals lie. Liberals lie about sending arms to Israel. The scandal is that we're not directly selling arms to Israel, but we are selling arms to the United States that we know are going to be sent to Israel. Like, we know. Darwin fan says, Marxists? Yeah, we're the Canadian commie, right? Communism is the doctrine of the liberation of the proletariat. But isn't communism bad? Who told you that, Darwin? Where are you getting that information from? Is it capitalists? Is it capitalists, Darwin? Why do you believe that communism is bad? First of all, what's communism? Darwin writes, well, it's not so much that someone told me that, it just seems bad. Okay, why do you think that? Like, let's actually challenge this perspective. Like, why do you think that? What makes you think that? And like, cue up all the CIA propaganda, right? Cue up all the capitalist propaganda. Here we go. Hull writes, being on forums and sites with predominantly neo-Nazis, I've come to the conclusion that these entities are literal demons, absolute vile creatures. Yeah, I mean, they consider themselves to be human and that everybody else is subhuman, right? And that they have enshrined in an ideology. They've enshrined in their philosophy of thought. Like, one of the primary, like, Nazi leaders is Jordan Peterson, right? His ideology, if you listen to his ideology, he is talking about Nazism. And, like, somebody put together a compilation of Jordan Peterson chewing out Elmo. So Elmo writes, Elmo needs a hug today. Peterson responds, go to hell. Elmo writes, Ramadan Mubarak, everyone. Elmo loves you. Heart. Peterson writes, Hamas will never win over the righteous keepers of the West. Up yours, scum. Elmo writes, happy birthday, Slimy. Elmo hopes you have a really great day. Hashtag happy birthday, Slimy. Slimy is the little worm that Oscar has. Peterson responds, go away and leave us alone, you virtue-signaling, narcissistic, fear-mongering dispenser of the peasantry. At Elmo. He added Elmo. More Perfect Union writes, breaking, the writers of Sesame Street have authorized a strike unanimously. Peterson writes, this is unspeakably great. Shut down the prophets of Baal if I've identified them properly. And I have. That's at Elmo. Prison for crimes against humanity. So, genocide in Gaza, totally fine. Israel's right to defend itself. Little red puppet. Prophet of Baal, jail. Elmo writes, I love these. I love these, dude. I love these, right? Wow, Elmo is glad he asked. Elmo learned that it is important to ask a friend how you're doing. Elmo will check in again soon, friends. Elmo loves you. Hashtag emotional well-being. Peterson responds, go fuck yourself for wanting to discriminate against white people. Elmo writes, can Elmo still be red after Labor Day? Peterson responds, you will wear orange when you finally pay for your crimes. Marxist scum. And this is somebody these people respect. Like, that should tell you a lot. That should tell you a lot. So Darwin fan asks, or comments, well, communism can mean various things. Nope. Like, already we're off on the wrong foot, right? Communism is the doctrine of the liberation of the working class, of the proletariat, right? Or if you prefer, the study of the liberation of the working class. Like, it is the pursuit by people to move away to liberate themselves from the chains of capitalism. That's what it is. And to say it means various things is to misunderstand the subject. Like, that quote that I'm giving you is literally Frederick Engels, one of the founders of the concept of communism. So to muddy the waters and pretend like it is something it isn't is to actively propagandize yourself, to actively gaslight yourself, and to actually not seriously engage in the subject in a meaningful way. And so what you're doing is you're essentially just defining communism however you like, so erecting a straw man, and then blowing over that straw man with as much gusto as you possibly can and declaring communism to be bad because you defined it as bad. So you're not actually seriously engaging with the subject, like right off the cuff, like right away. And then you go on to a quote, which I assume you Googled this. The real movement to abolish the present state of things, as Marx put it. Yes, like to move away from capitalism. The idea of a stateless, classless society, I mean, that's sort of the long-term kind of a goal, or a movement which in some way pursues a stateless, classless society. Sure. Like, that's Google. You just, like, ChatGPT'd that, right? But if you actually read what the communists wrote, and you actually understand what communism is, like, Frederick Engels wrote a book called The Principles of Communism, so I'll just direct you towards that. So just go ahead and take a look at Frederick Engels' The Principles of Communism. It's funny that the Communist Manifesto is so well regarded and so well known, and that everybody kind of pushes forward the Communist Manifesto, because The Principles of Communism, I think, is actually a much better starting text. It's a much better place to start. So Frederick Engels' The Principles of Communism is what I would direct you with. And, oh, you didn't ChatGPT that? Fantastic. But still, that's still like the Google answer. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's still the answer you'll get from capitalist sources. Because at the end of the day, that's what you're using, right? You're using capitalist sources. And so you find a capitalist source that wants to talk to you about communism. Well, it's not actually going to talk to you about communism, right? It's going to talk to you about kind of a cartoonish version that they invent about communism. Because they're capitalists, right? The moment you accept that, like, maybe talking to the enemies of communism about what communism is a bad idea, that's the moment you can actually begin investigating this subject with clarity. And you can actually start to, hey, maybe I should read what Frederick Engels wrote. Maybe I should read what Karl Marx wrote. Maybe I should read what Mao, what Stalin. Maybe I should actually read and know what these guys have to say before I cast my judgment on them. Like, it's sort of odd what we do in the West, and we do it all the time, where we draw this hard conclusion about a subject, but we don't know anything about what the country or the people actually said about themselves and their own period of time. It'd be like being a juror for a murder case, but the person accused of murder isn't allowed to present any evidence to defend himself. That's essentially where we're at. So it's only the prosecution that's allowed to present evidence. It's only the prosecution that's allowed to have their voice heard. It's only the prosecution that's allowed to have witnesses. And we're never allowed to talk to the accused, and we're never allowed to see evidence presented by the accused. I don't think I would consider that to be a legitimate case. Darwin writes, you're making a litany of bizarre assumptions. No, I've just done this enough, bud. Like, I've done this enough. I've talked to people like you for years. And you come in and you say communism is bad, but you don't actually know why. Right? Like, why is communism bad? There. Just like, please tell me. Go ahead. But I can already tell. Like, we're going to spend another half hour having this conversation. We're going to end up exactly right back here. That you've learned everything you've learned because you've just read what capitalists have to say. So I just don't waste my time anymore. But please, go ahead. Tell me. Tell me why communism is bad. QCIA. Yeah, what a freak JP is. Absolutely. He just makes himself look ridiculous, so laughingly pathetic. He's yelling at Elmo. I know, right? Like, even if you did think these things, even if you did believe that, like, Elmo is a problem for some reason, like, the idea that you're, like, shaking your hands at a puppet. Peanut Butter Beatrice says, just bought it now. Thanks for the recommendation. Is that for Frederick Engels' The Principles of Communism? You didn't need to buy it. You can find that online. The Principles of Communism, you can find Marxist.ca. Pretty much every document that's ever been written by any Marxist, you can find at, is it Marxist.ca or is it Marxist.com? Or is it Marxism.com? Oh no, Marxism.com. Nope. Hold on. It's the Principles of Communism PDF. This will just do it. Yeah, Marxist.org. That's what it is. And then just Principles of Communism. There it is. What is communism? Communism is the doctrine of the conditions of the liberation of the proletariat. What is the proletariat? The proletariat is that class in society which lives entirely from the sale of its labor and does not draw profit from any kind of capital, whose weal and woe, whose life and death, whose sole existence depends on the demand for labor. Hence, on the changing state of business, on the vagaries of unbridled competition, the proletariat or the class of proletarians is, in a word, the working class of the 19th century. Proletarians then have not always existed? No, there have always been working blah blah blah, and so on and so forth, right? How did the proletariat originate? Under what conditions? And of course this gets interesting because like Mao points out that the definition used here by Frederick Engels applies to that period of time very specifically. And Frederick Engels is very specific about what the proletariat is, how it originated, all of this. But Mao discusses communism from the perspective of the peasantry. And he points out that the power of the revolution exists not within the proletariat in China, but rather in the peasantry. And that's who he mobilizes. Successfully, for that matter. So Darwin Fan writes, Marx's historical materialism doesn't really seem to make much sense, really. Okay, well, what are you confused about? Like, historical materialism just essentially boils down to we should know what happened, right? That we shouldn't simply use supernatural explanations or propaganda or flowery language or mythical thinking, right? Superstitious thought. We should actually know what happened, right? We should know what document was signed. We should know who said what, right? And that's fundamentally what historical materialism is. So I'm mainly confused about why you find that confusing. Like, do you think we should have these conversations without knowing what actually happened in events? It's kind of an odd position to hold. And then Hamish says, could you in a sentence or two explain historical materialism? Darwin says, it's a theory regarding changes in the mode of production over time, which concerns relations of production. I think you're just lost in the sauce, my man. Like, what you're writing here is just kind of babble. Like, it's just buzzwords, right? Like, I'll just say it. It is a theory regarding changes in the mode of production over time, which concerns relations of production and the technological basis of production. Within this theory, Marx goes on to lay out an account of historical changes in the mode of production and also future changes he predicts. Yeah, like, that's sort of a babblish way of saying we want to know what happened. What happened yesterday? We want an account of it. We want to see what people actually said about things, right? Like, and that, like, if we're going to talk about, like, if we're going to talk about anything in our history, we should know what happened yesterday, right? And very often people don't want to discuss what happened yesterday. That's why capitalists have, like, a pretty major amnesia. They don't want to discuss what happened yesterday. They always want to talk about what happened, what's happening right in this moment, right now, right? Forget about what happened yesterday. That's fine. I'm just the boss of this place. We don't need to discuss how I became the boss of this place. Content writes, no, that's accurate. Yeah, it is. There is accuracy. Yeah, he just doesn't understand it. Yeah. No, that's why I'm trying to boil it down into its like bare essentials, right? Like, because Marx was a scientist and he discussed things very technically. And so to boil it down to its base essentials is essentially to say, just know what happened yesterday. Like, that's it. There's no mystery to it. There's no like big shocking revelation. It's not confusing. DJ Paradigm Shift, good to see you. The term social murder was coined by Frederick Engels in 1845 of his work, The Condition of the Working Class in England. Yeah. Like the Frederick Engels and Marx are deeply, deeply important figures, right? And they should be taken much more seriously than they are. When Richard Wolff, who is one of the more prominent Marxist economists in America, when he pointed out that he studied at like Yale and Harvard and that he was never told to read Marx, I found that to be scandalous. I found that to be shocking. Darwin writes, I mean, it seems a bit bizarre to call that the capitalist view. That seems more like a Carlylean view, though I don't know. Maybe he's a capitalist, I guess. I mean, man, I just think you're getting lost in the sauce. That's all. Like, you're making this more complex than it is. Like, you just want to live in an abstraction. That's all. Like, we have bosses. Why do we have bosses? There are people who own everything. Why do they own everything? Like, I just feel like you're intentionally missing the point on purpose, and I see that all the time. Like, for millions and millions and millions of people, these ideas are not an abstraction, right? We're not talking about philosophers. We're not talking about like we're not having a battle of philosophy here. Like, people go to work, and they work for people. And who are these people? What is the divide that exists in the society? And the divide that exists in the society is between people who own things and people who don't. Right? People who have to sell their labor and people who don't have to sell their labor. People who own massive factories, enormous amounts of land, right? Who never actually go to work in those land and probably couldn't find them on a map if they tried. And the people who actually work in those factories and the people who actually do the work in the fields. Like, this is what we're discussing. We're not getting lost in this odd, abstract conversation that you seem to want to take the conversation into, and I'm completely disinterested in. Like, of course the subject doesn't make any sense because you don't seem to be rooted in reality. Like, this is a conversation about people going to work and working people working. And why don't they have more say in what happens in their workplaces? Like, we call ourselves a democracy, right? But most of the time you don't have any say in what happens in your life, right? Like, you're told what to do, you're told what to wear, you're told what to sell, you're told where to stand, you're told what to say, right? And at no point does anybody ask you, do you think that's a good idea? That's all. And so why do we call ourselves a democracy at all? Because what? Once every 4 years we get to check a box? It's a very narrow view of democracy. And so I'm starting to get a sense of why you're so confused. Darwin says, yeah, maybe you'll enlighten me since clearly you're the one who understands it. Yeah, I mean, right, correct. So go ahead, ask a question. But again, like, it just seems like you want to be lost in abstraction. And I'm not interested in that. Like, I don't really care what Thucydides had to say about, like, I live here. I live in Canada. It's 2025, right? Like, the material conditions are different. This isn't 3,000 years ago. JT, good to see you. No, I don't know about willful obstinacy. It just seems to me like a subject like this can be lost in abstraction within academia, right? People approach it from an academic point of view, and it's never been that ever, right? And academics in the West, of course, are routinely terrible at actually studying Marx from any serious perspective, because Marxism is about working people. It's about people who work and who do a job, and asking the question, why don't these people have more say about what happens in their workplaces? Why is it that they have a boss? Why is it that their voice is never heard? Why is it that they can't actually achieve anything? And the consequences of what that means for the society, right? But the moment you start talking about, like, the philosopher Thucydides, it's like, who gives a fuck? Like, I'm sorry, man. Like, this isn't like a Harvard philosophy circle. Like, go back to your weird little club, I guess. Like, we're working people. We work jobs. We do work. Darwin writes, okay, so in Marx's theory, he lays out this concept regarding the progression of modes of production over time. Slaves, societies, feudal society built on the relationship of lord and serf, capitalist society built on the relationship of bourgeoisie and capital and proletariat. Yeah, so far. Why is it that there exists a pattern in all these modes of production where the primary class relation that characterizes it consists of classes that come from outside the primary class relations of the mode of production from which they observed? Yet his projection for what is to come after the capitalist mode of production breaks with this pattern from which they emerged. It doesn't, though. Like, Marx points out that slavery, like, there's something that happens before slavery, right? There's what Marx calls primitive communism, that people are living in egalitarian societies, trading with one another. There are examples of this even in the modern era, right? And slavery and empire and monarchy and feudalism and all of this arises from that. And then that we can return back to a communist society. And he asks the question, why do these things emerge? Why does the idea of slavery emerge in the first place? Well, because one group of people seeks to have everybody else do the work for nothing. Like, it's not a mystery, right? And, like, it's a bit concerning that we would not believe that we could not get away from that, right? Like, that's fundamentally what you're saying, is that if we're doing slavery, then I guess we're slavers and we'll just keep doing slavery. It's like, no. Like, no human being should actually believe that. Should actually believe the idea that we're just caught in an eternal pattern of enslaving one another and we can never get away from it. Especially because there's pretty clear examples of humanity getting away from it. And we can develop and we can progress. And we should discuss that progression. Like, if you see, it'd be like taking a look at a 2-year-old and just assuming that that's what a human being will always look like. And that a human being will never grow, will never develop, will never have a change of heart, will never have a change of tune. Like, one of the core assumptions in any social science, in any humanitarian science, is the idea that people can grow, that we can learn something. It's the reason we study at all, is that we think that we can learn something and we can grow, and we can change our view. And people do change their view. That's the entire point of the conversation. So it's a touch odd that we would hold on to this idea that would just say that, oh, humans are just stuck like this. We're just like this. Are we, though? Like, I don't think that that's something that can be taken seriously. Mark writes, I've been recommended Primitive Accumulation by Marx. Have I read it? I haven't had the chance to read that one. Compton says, Marx never said the proles would overthrow the bourgeois. He said they would either they either would or both classes would find common ruinations of each. Yeah, I mean, the elimination of the capitalist class is how we're going to proceed. Like, it doesn't make any sense to have owners. Like, this whole, like, idea of having private owners, it just doesn't make any sense. We have Gator Nuts in the chat. Gator writes, I don't know, I'm 60 years old. I fought Desert Storm. I've never seen anybody actually change their opinion ever. I mean, you're talking to somebody who used to be a fundamentalist Christian. Like, I used to believe that Jesus Christ was coming back at any moment. I changed my mind, right? Like, it wasn't easy. It was like a big, long ship taking a big turn. It didn't happen in a day, but I changed. And that's like fundamental to the conversation. Like, that's a fundamental truism and a truth of the conversation, is that people can change their worldview. That if you don't believe that people can change their mind, then why are we even talking? Like, why are you even talking? Like, if you don't think that people's minds can be changed, then why don't you just shut up and keep living your life and just roll your eyes at people when they start talking about changing their mind? Why are you trying to change my mind? Minds can't be changed, right? Because you fundamentally believe that minds can be changed, right? It's the only reason you would actually talk. You wouldn't even talk. You wouldn't even engage in conversation or debate if you didn't think that anybody's minds could be changed. You fundamentally believe your mind can be changed, right? Why else would you engage in a discussion? Just like masturbation, I guess? The enjoyment of doing it? Darwin writes, it doesn't even really seem to be possible to abolish private ownership, at least not for more than a generation, maybe two. So it's defeated before you've even started, so why try, right? Like, we've limited the discourse to your imagination. So, okay. Like, the divine right of kings was assumed to be true, and then it wasn't. Right? Like, you can look through human history and find all kinds of things that we used to believe in, and now we don't. Right? And we don't, lots of practices that we used to engage in, and we don't. Like, private property will be one of those. And the thing that will really destroy the concept of private property and private ownership is that the societies and the cultures that really double down on private property will fall behind dramatically. Whereas the societies that progress away from it, that seek to kind of put it in the background of the society and seek to move forward without it, are going to accelerate very quickly, and are accelerating very quickly. And you can see it. Like, you can see it today. Like, China has an arrangement where the Communist Party is involved in most major businesses, and they have CCP members who are part of most boards of directors. And China is accelerating away from us at an incredible rate. And Richard Wolff has described their system as a hybrid. I tend to describe it as, yeah, it's a hybrid because it's a step moving away from private capital, moving away from these systems, while still having to accept that they exist. They can't just flip a switch and be done with it. And it's just going to become more and more obvious. It's just going to become more and more apparent that societies that move away from private ownership and allow someone like Elon Musk to be the final say, to be the final arbiter in what happens in these establishments, these places are going to, like, America is going to fall behind very dramatically. It's going to be very clear, and China is going to accelerate. And it's for this very reason that they don't buy into your hypothesis. Darwin writes, but capitalist relations described by private owners of property purchasing the labor of people and then sell produced goods for a profit and then reinvest into more cap. This is just neoliberal propaganda. And then more capital and more labor has been a feature of human civilization for thousands of years. Has it? It's a pretty big claim. Like, have there been slavers? Sure. Like, there's a reason why human Western civilization sort of wallows, right? Like the history of the Roman Empire is essentially just a stagnation of what you might call civilization for a long, long time, because they had this like ridiculous slave notion. But this idea that what the wealthy do is they make wealth and then reinvest it in their society, it's just, there's no examples of it. Like right now in the modern era, like what capitalists actually do is they make money from your surplus labor and then they ship that money overseas, or they buy up your housing market, right? They do everything they can to maintain their own power and privilege. They bribe politicians. They own the political system. At no point are these guys actually reinvesting anything in the society. Like their task is to extract as much wealth from the society as possible. And then from that process, they might accidentally end up building some kind of ancillary system. Like how the Vatican has all of this like gold and jewelry and gems and all of this like art. And you go to the Vatican and you're like, wow, look at how artistic and all this. It's all stolen. Right? It's all just extracted wealth that they put in the Vatican, and now everybody's nobody's willing to be like, hey, we should probably strip this place for parts and return this stuff back from whence it came, because the Vatican is the holy city, and we've got a new pope, the leader of the pedophile cult, right? Yeah, Joe writes, of course we can change. That's the gift humans were given via self-awareness and consciousness. Yeah, it's a question of willingness. The potential already exists. Yeah. Yeah, JT, neoliberalism hasn't. This person is erasing 90% of history of indigenous people. Yeah. Yeah, none of the wealth trickled down. Fofacon, good to see you, my man. I've always hated Western idealists trying to criticize Eastern socialist experiments. We're not even in that. Like, we're not even, we're having a discussion about whether or not people can have their minds changed. Like, we're at like the raw fundamentals of like, what is it to be a person? Soon we'll get into the conversation about human nature, I'm sure. Well, and now Darwin's getting into it with one of the other guys, so. Gator writes, they send the government to your private business to tell you to run it. I'm sorry, correct me if I'm wrong. Keeps jumping down. I don't think anybody's better qualified to run my business than I am, even if that means running it into the ground. Yeah, I mean, once you get up, like, that's a great idea if you're running like an ice cream shop, Gator. Like, if you're just running like an ice cream stand, right, nobody's going to care about you. Like, nobody's going to care if you're running some rinky-dinky diner, or like you're like, you know, a guy who's like fixing tires or something, right? Like, if you own a landscaping business or something, right, sure. But once you get up to the point where you're talking about like, we need to make hundreds of millions of components for millions of parts, like things that are going to be on the space station, right? Because what happens with private capital is that they start to make counterintuitive decisions. Planned obsolescence is a good example of this. I would actually argue that like the best example of what I'm talking about is planned obsolescence. The idea that we'll make something and then we'll plan to have it become obsolete as fast as possible. In the case of like iPhones, for a period of time there, they were obsolete within 2 years. And so the idea is now we get to sell more iPhones. Okay, but that's a huge burden on the society. That's a huge burden on your resources. It's a huge burden on your workforce, right? And it's a huge waste of everybody's time. And so what you do is you have somebody step in and say, yeah, you can't do that. That's not a real thing that you can actually plan to do. We don't here in the West, of course, because our entire system is in thrall of this capitalist cult. But sane, rational societies are like, yeah, we're not going to allow a private business to own like hundreds of billions of dollars worth of manufacturing and factories and then make things for our people that break in 2 years, or make things that we're going to put on a space station or a moon base, or like our fighter jets that break within 2 years. Like, we're just not going to do that. And so, again, like, if you're thinking about this in terms of like, you know, let's say you're a very successful business and you have like $1 million toy store and you're selling toys. Sure. Okay. But we're actually having a conversation about like the people who own the food supply, the people who build housing, right? Like major, massive, multinational, billion-dollar, maybe even trillion-dollar corporations. Like, yes, these organizations should absolutely have oversight. And no, I do not believe for a minute that the quote-unquote private owner that owns this business is doing what's best for the people of the country he's operating in. Like, there are vulture capitalists. There are people who are willing to destroy their business to make profit, ruin the lives of millions of people to make profit, to poison water supplies for profit. Like, the idea that there are not these people in the society and that capitalists don't do this is wrong. It's just wrong. So you absolutely would like an elected official, somebody who you actually can go to and be like, hey, I have concerns, and if you're not responding to our concerns, then we can potentially be rid of you. We can fire you. They're even theoretically responsive to what you have to say. You definitely want an organization like that looking at these private capitalists whose entire job is to make money. They don't care about making a good product. They don't care about selling a good product. They care about creating monopolies and making money for themselves and then dismantling and destroying entire civilizations and entire countries for money. Like, that's their goal. And so you definitely want to look at them and be like, yeah, nah. Like, the analogy that I use is that fire is very useful, right? We all agree with this, right? We all agree with the idea that fire is useful, right? So, but fire should be kept in a fireplace. It should be handled with tools. We also acknowledge that fire is dangerous and that fire can do a lot of damage to the society, right? That sure, you can cook food with fire and you can power things with fire, and fire is useful, but fire is also very dangerous. And so fundamentally what you're saying is that, well, fire is useful, so we should just let fire out of the fireplace and let fire decide whatever fire wants to do, right? Well, fire will decide, and fire will grow by consuming your house, and then consuming your neighbor's house, and consuming the land, and consuming the trees, and consuming everything around it, because fire's objective is to grow and consume. It doesn't have any opinion outside of that. It doesn't care what it destroys, because that's not how fire operates, right? And what I'm saying is maybe allowing fire out of the fireplace to decide whatever it wants to do is good, is a bad idea. And that we should instead leave fire in the fireplace and try to improve the situation to make it more secure, to protect us from the bad outcomes of fire, and also allow us to maximize the benefits that fire gives us. Like, can we build infrastructure so that the same size fire can produce more heat? These kinds of ideas. But if your idea is let's just open up the fireplace and let the fire decide, yeah, hard disagreement from me. That's not a real thing that I'm going to seriously think is a serious point. Gator writes, the free market works much better than the government. There's plenty of statistics to prove that. Then why isn't it? Like, why isn't the free market solving problems? Like, if the free market works better, then why isn't the free market solving problems? Like, China is literally eliminating its deserts. Like, did you know that? Like China is literally going through like a de-desertification process. There's a desert in China called the Desert of Death. It's like Death Valley in America. And the Chinese have gone through government programs, right? It's not the free market that's doing it. And they're eliminating the desert. They're making the desert green. And they're pursuing that objective because they understand that the impacts that they're having on the climate largely. Like there's no free market solution for climate change. It's just not going to happen. And so if we don't actually intervene and actually have a serious discussion about what kind of world do we want to live in, what kind of existence do we want to have, right? If we don't actually have a conversation in seriousness about whether or not we are actually going to rein these people in, and whether or not we are actually going to pursue goals for the benefit of our own people, well, the fire will consume us, because that's what it is. It's just they're grinding everything up for profit. And it's happening right in front of your eyes. Like that's the part about it that's so stunning whenever I talk to apologists like yourself. Is that you just ignore it. Like you just don't actually accept what is real. And so it's like a religious ideology in a way. It's just like a fantasy world where it's like that dog meme where the dog is sitting in that house that's on fire and sipping the coffee being like, this is fine. Like, maybe not, brah. Maybe not. Like, maybe it's not so fine. And the free market's not helping you. It's not interested in helping you. What are you guys saying over here? Mark writes, human society was collective far, far longer than every individualistic hellhole of the last few centuries. Yeah. And I mean, you take a look at the slave societies, it's all just like war, right? Like it's just war and devastation. JT writes, and the companies came together to agree on planned obsolescence with the light bulb. Yep. The light bulb is a big one. Yeah, you don't even need to be that modern. Like it's baked into the core of, like, we know that we can make a light bulb that just stays on, and it just stays on in perpetuity. There's one such light bulb that is actually still on. It's been on for 100 years. But they knew that they couldn't sell a bunch of these, and so they made them burn out. Like, so this whole idea of planned obsolescence has been there since the very beginning. So Gator discredits himself as a thinker by saying climate change is enthralled with false hippie science. Bye, Gator Nuts. Not interested in your opinion anymore. In fact, I'm just not interested in talking to flat earthers. Like, if you're going to go ahead and deny climate science, like, we're not really interested in what you have to say. So bye. I only really want to talk to people who have their feet planted in reality. So maybe rethink your worldview, my man. I just have like zero tolerance for this. Like you're actually going to stand in front of me and say that climate change doesn't exist? Bye. I just don't have time. JT writes, if you wanted to destroy the earth, capitalism is what you'd put forth. Everything more harsh and people would revolt. I mean, Mark writes, Gator Nuts, why are right-wingers so obsessed with genitalia? I mean, little kids don't really grow up, right? Like, that's kind of the truth. I just don't see any reason to be polite anymore with this kind of stuff. Like, you're going to stand in here and tell me that your worldview should be listened to and you should be tolerated while simultaneously denying reality on, like, the highest possible level. It's just like flat earther nonsense. Like, no wonder these people think the way they think, right? Like, no wonder these people are so obsessed with convincing everybody of their worldview. Like, they live in a fantasy world. Like, ugh. Climate change is full of hippy-dippy. Yeah, bye. Like, maybe 1 + 1 does in fact equal 2. Maybe reality does in fact exist. Like, it's just startling how people think they should be respected when they refuse to engage meaningfully with reality. Like, JT writes, private market works better than the defunded working systems, says the person who ignores actual history. Like, they're focusing on Reagan era and beyond as reality. No, I mean, we're just denying climate science. So we know who this person is, right? They're just living in a dream world. Like, maybe things are working out for them. Maybe they're in that top 10 percentile, right? Like, there's like 10% of the society is doing extremely well, right? People are millionaires. People have all this kind of stuff. They live in gated communities. They were born to a wealthy family. They went to the rich school. They went to the rich thing. They own a job that was given to them by their dad. And they're like, what's the problem? Because they've never once actually stepped it outside of their gated community. This guy just revealed to all of us that he just doesn't know anything about anything, right? He's just a little kid that never really grew up, because if you were a grown-up, you would absolutely be looking at climate change and being like, that's a problem. Like, that's a big red flag. Like, the conversation, if we were a culture of adults, like if we were interested in being a culture of adults, the conversation that we would be having about climate change is how do we stop that as fast as possible? That would be the actual conversation that we would be actually having. But we're not actually having that conversation, right? Because we're not actually adults. We're just kind of like little kids that got caught in like grade 8, and we never actually got past it. And so we don't need to continue talking to those people, because they're not interested in solving a problem, because they're not interested in acknowledging that a problem exists. It's the same kind of thing that says that, like, Israel has the right to defend itself, while they literally starve people. Like, it's the same thing. So I don't have any interest in spending any time convincing people that up is up, and that the sky is blue, and that water is wet, the earth is round. You know, like, these are conversations I'm just not interested in having. Yeah, the GOAT, yeah. The free market works best for who? The ultra-rich owning class? I'm sure. Yeah. And I think that's just what we encountered. We just saw as clear evidence as we could possibly see that these people are demented. Like, they're just out of touch with reality completely. And it's just, it happens every single time. Guy comes in and starts talking about how great the free market is, and before you know it, he's just a Nazi or a climate change denier, some kind of lunatic who's actively seeking to destroy the society, being like, what's wrong? I don't understand. Why are people so upset that I'm destroying the planet for my own personal gain? I don't understand. So, yeah, even within capitalist nations, public services, when funded, operate much better. Yeah, like, take a look at transit services. Or, like, if you want to get down to, like, the brass tacks of it, you should be talking about garbage removal. Like, there's no free market solution for garbage removal, right? There's no free market solution for fire services. There's no free market solution for police services. Like, there's no free market solution to these things. Because if you try to do a free market service or a free market system for garbage removal, what you end up with is your streets covered in garbage. That's just what happens. And so if you don't want your streets to be covered in garbage, then you should probably create a system that says, yeah, we're just not going to have our streets covered in garbage. We're going to mandate that. We're going to erect a crown corporation, or we're going to erect an organization whose responsibility it is to clear the streets of garbage. And we're going to fund that because we don't want our streets to be covered in garbage. And if you have a free market solution, quote unquote free market solution, then your streets are going to be covered in garbage, because there's just going to be tons of people who won't be able to afford it. Over on Twitch, Rotary Boys 27. Thoughts on anarchist/ancoms and left unity? Is purity testing hurting the left? So anytime I talk to any anarchist anywhere, and some of the people in my chat are anarchists, right? I only have really one disagreement. I only have one really disagreement with anarchists, which is that you can't just abolish the state. That anarchism is the idea that we can just abolish the state and then erect like a horizontal society and organize it that way. Unfortunately, that's not what happens. That if you just attempt to abolish the state, then your neighboring states or the previous owners of that previous state will just roll a military in and take you over. And if you want to actually defend yourself against that with seriousness and sincerity, then you need to build or inherit a well-established, well-regulated, and well-equipped military force, which, guess what? That's the state. So what communists believe is that we have to seize control of the state and then steadily over time through our negotiations with reality, diminish the power of the state over time. The issue that communist countries have encountered is that capitalists will literally carpet bomb you. Like that's just the hard fundamental truth of how capitalists are and what they have historically done. Is that if you stand up and declare yourself a communist country, Westerners will begin the process of attempting to destroy your country. And so you need centralized power to stand virulently against that. And that's just a hard reality that anarchists don't really seem to want to seriously engage with. Outside of that, I find anarchists to be correct most of the time. That I find myself nodding in agreement. I think that there's a lot of things that anarchists and communists see eye to eye on. It's this issue of the state and how to get away from the state that is the sticking point. And then you ask the question, is purity testing hurting the left? So that sort of depends on what you mean, because there are definitely people who attempt to present themselves as leftists who are racists and who are essentially capitalist apologists. Like, do I think that it's somewhat silly that there are factions within communism and that those factions tend to break off from one another because one group thinks Gonzalo is somebody we should listen to, or another group thinks Trotsky is somebody we should listen to, when everybody kind of agrees on the larger sort of thing? Yeah, I do think that's a bit silly. But at the same time, like, again, there are incredibly bad faith actors who are literally willing to murder you. Like, this is sort of the problem that I think, especially new leftists, really don't want to accept or embrace, is that, like, organizations like the CIA will murder you. They will kick in your door and kidnap you and send you to a black site. That's a real thing that they will do. And historically, they have done. And so the left lives in this perpetual state of terror where they're constantly being bombarded with propaganda. They're constantly being bombarded by people who are well-funded, who are attempting to co-opt movements and destroy them from within. And so this puts Marxists especially on edge and on guard. That we want to be aware if the person who's attempting to get into our organization is a CIA agent. And if you think that's hyperbolic, then I don't know what to say to you. Like, there does come a point where reality matters. And you also do have groups. Like, I think the American Communist Party right now is one of these groups that presents itself as Marxist, but it's essentially National Socialism. Like, it's just Nazism again. But they present them. So we're seeing in real time how the Nazis took hold and how they gained popular support. And that people give these groups a free pass because they're talking about Marxism at all. Hamish, you've written quite a few things and I haven't said it. Poor Greta, since she has spoken about Palestine, media has banished her. Yeah, the moment Greta said that the real threat was capitalism, she was out of the media. Hamish writes, if you want to cite Lenin in a wealthy Western esteemed institution, you cite Lenin in French. Then you are part of the ruling class. And then you continue, the history of anarchism is betraying revolutionary movements and joining reactionary forces like Franco. I don't even care to get into that kind of conversation. Like, I think that groups make mistakes and that there are lots of things like this. Rotary writes, funny enough, it was the American communists that I gained interest of Marxism from. Yeah, I mean, I I became a communist because of Jordan Peterson. So I respect that idea. That, like, Jordan Peterson stood up and said, the communists are evil. And I thought to myself, oh, if this guy thinks communism is evil, then I should have a look at it. And then I did, and then I became a communist. Yeah, Mark, it's literally 40 degrees in the end of May in New Jersey. If that's not climate change, then what is that? Yeah. No, like we're just weeding out people who are not really interested in engaging seriously with reality. And like that's just the long and short of it. Like if you're not interested in engaging seriously in reality, then we don't need to keep you around. The trouble is that there's enough of those to vote in somebody like Trump, right? Like it turns out that it's the majority of the population. Like that's the major concern, and that's what we talk about when we're talking about raising class consciousness, right? Like we need to raise class consciousness. We need to raise people's awareness of what's actually going on in the world in a serious way, because there's too many flat earthers out there. That, like, if I could go back on my life and change one thing, it would be that when I first encountered this phenomenon of flat eartherism, I would have been much more aggressive against these people. Way more aggressive. Because if you can believe the earth is flat, you can believe anything you like. And we're going to pay serious consequences for it. The Goat writes, John has as much patience dealing with climate deniers as I do transphobes. I go off. Yeah, I'm pretty much over with all of that. Like, I just don't, like, 1 + 1 = 2. Like, that's all. Like, there's so much evidence for it. It's so overwhelming. Like, it's you really are just like a person standing in a room that's steadily filling with water, denying that it's happening. Like, you really are just this person who's like, the water is up to your eyeballs, and you're just like, well, gotta get to work. Everything's completely fine. It's just kind of embarrassing. JT writes, I spent a bit of time considering myself an anarchist, and yeah, I agree with certain end goals and critiques, but it's lofty, more philosophical than science-y. Yeah, I mean, this is sort of my issue with anarchism. Like, I find that anarchists are really only interested in criticizing power, that they don't really want to take power. And if you're not really interested in taking power, then you're essentially like a prepper, right? Like, you're just a guy who's like, I'm going to go out to the wilderness and get it done myself. Meanwhile, like, other people are actually in the halls of power trying to overthrow and trying to foment something serious. And once the communists take power, the anarchists criticize them too, right? Because the purpose of anarchism doesn't seem to be to actually take power and actually use power. It seems to be to endlessly criticize power. Hold on. JT writes, a loser guy at a protest, I assume this is Greta, was speaking at, grabbed the mic and said, I don't want politics at this climate change event. What a goofball. Yeah, what a goofball. Fofacon says, ACP is definitely National Socialism. Yeah, it just is. Like, they reference Nazis in their writing. They consider straight white men to be the universal. Like, it's pretty boilerplate stuff. JT writes, she said no climate justice on stolen land into a chant. Yeah, like, this is part of the reason why doing this is so, like, it's not really cathartic for me anymore, just because things have gotten so fucking goofy, right? Like, things are so obviously goofy and so obviously strange and so obviously oddballish that it's so weird that there are people who are even coming in and trying to talk to me the way that they do. Like, you're gonna genuinely come in here and try to deny that climate change exists? You're just a fucking loser goofball. Like, I don't have to listen to anything you have to say. It's just like admitting that you think the earth is flat. Like, okay, then I don't really have to take you seriously. And yet these people demand the most. They demand the most. They insist on being taken seriously. It's like, well, if you want to be taken seriously, maybe you should become serious. Like, maybe you should be a serious person. Like, for God's sakes. Global warming reached an estimated 1.49 Celsius in April 2025. If the 30-year warming trend continues, global warming would reach 2 degrees Celsius by July 2035. Here's the graph. Like, there just comes a point where you accept reality or you don't. And what's been so shocking about doing this and about still doing this is how people don't want to engage seriously with reality. They just want to live in a dream world and then insist that their worldview should be taken seriously. XD writes, Pat Sox started off good several years ago, but it became clear to people what they stand for. Yeah, I mean, I think initially they were just more careful. The issue is that their leadership is sort of demented, right? Like the guy who is their president is clearly demented. Like, you just go to his live stream and listen to him. I've done it. Go to your live stream and listen to him. It's just like babble. Like, it's just babble. And then you read anything he writes, and it's just babble. Full of slurs, insulting people, insulting trans people, insulting women, insulting gay people. He genuinely believes that white men are the center of the culture and that they are the people, that they're the neutral, they're the universal. And it's just a word salad babble that he clearly holds on to this childish belief that saying more makes you smarter. Long Defiance says, anarchists are builders of new systems of power. Yeah, that's correct. And I don't really have a problem with that. But those new systems of power can be overwhelmed and have historically been overwhelmed by centralized power structures. And those centralized power structures are not disappearing. They're not vanishing. They're not going away. If anything, they're getting bigger and stronger and more rooted. Long Defiance says, if you start by taking over the hierarchy, you'll just reproduce the hierarchy. The master's tools will never disassemble the master's house. My question is, what is really the alternative? Like, what really is the alternative? Like, because anarchism doesn't really offer an alternative that can be successful. Like, maybe it can be successful for like one family and one guy, and like maybe you can have like a little small community. But the minute that such a society would begin to challenge the power structure in a meaningful way, it would just be obliterated, and it has been obliterated. So, like, I'm not trying to stand here and say that the idea of seizing the state and then having it wither away over time is the biggest ideal, that it's the greatest thing ever. I'm not championing it. What I'm saying is that it's the best of the bad options. Reutery writes, anyone know what's up with car enthusiasts and Nazis? Why are so many car enthusiasts childish rightoids? Because cars are sweet. Take a look at a little kid playing with a car. This is what I'm talking about. Like, people don't grow up. Right? People stop developing. Like, I know 60-year-olds who are 6 years old. Like, I know people who, like someone like Ben Shapiro. I think Ben Shapiro is a great example of this. Like, he's 12. Like, he managed to get to 12. And I think 12 is probably when he realized and recognized that people regarded him as something of a savant. That he's one of these kids that was told when he was pretty young that he was actually like a super genius kid. And so he like identifies with that and he holds on to that. But it means that he stopped developing at 12. Because if you think you're a super genius, then everything you think is right. Right? and you never actually have to develop past that. And like, to be fair to Shapiro, like, listen to him play the violin. Like, it's legit. Like, it's, you gotta give credit where credit is due. Like, if he had been born 300, 200 years ago, he would just be the lead violinist in some symphony somewhere. And but instead of that, he wants to be a writer and make movies, and nobody liked what he wrote because he's fundamentally a child, and he hates women. He doesn't really understand the idea of the hero's journey because he's never actually experienced the hero's journey. Like, that's sort of the sad tragedy of people like Shapiro, and there are a few of them, is that, like, they've never encountered a single obstacle in their life. For them, an obstacle is not everybody agreed with me. It's like, okay, bud, so you've never really experienced the hero's journey, which is what storytelling. That's one of the core theories of storytelling, is the hero's journey. And you have to encounter obstacles, and you have to get over those obstacles. Like, that's how the hero continues. But he's never really experienced it. So, Rotary Boys and anime fans too. I noticed many Japanese anime guys become Nazis. What's the correlation? Anyone knows? I mean, shut-ins like cartoons. It's not a big surprise. June writes, thoughts on consanguinamory. Should consenting adults be able to do whatever they want? Are laws against Dude, what is this word, June? June, why is it that every single time you comment, you say something really, like, esoteric? You're easily my most esoteric commentator. Oh, incest. I don't think that family members can consent to sexual relations with one another. I think that the relationship is inherently manipulative. It's inherently it's inherently grooming, right? Like, there's no such thing as a sister and a brother who are just absolutely pursuing consensual relations with one another, where no one is trying to manipulate anyone into any position, right? That to me is so the question itself, the thesis itself, the theory itself, has embedded in it an assumption that I consider to be false. That a brother and a sister, or a mother and a son, or a father and a daughter, or even a cousin and a cousin can, like, they're consenting adults. No, they're not. No, they're not. That someone's being manipulated. Someone's being groomed. Someone's being put into a situation that they can't escape. Like, and so I don't think that incest as an idea can be talked about as an act of consent on any. I don't think there is such a thing as consenting adults when the subject is incest. DJ writes, Moneyless Society did a thing about the carnage of car culture on YouTube. It's pretty good. Touches a bit on that subject. Oh yeah, car culture, like, of course, like, fascists would love car culture. Like, it's tearing up as many resources as possible to look cool, right? It's straight up just like, big truck, make me big man. I want respect from people. I want to climb the hierarchy. I want to be considered. I want people to think that I look tough and that I'm an awesome guy who has all this kind of stuff. So let's destroy the planet and its resources to try to get a one up on each other. And so yeah, like it's completely ridiculous. Like we should have transit systems. Like that's what we should have. But instead of having transit systems, we have these ridiculous cars and trucks. Like it'd be bad enough if it was like cars, right? But it's like these big gigantic like F1 Ford Jimmy Thunder Cougar Falcon Bird vehicles that are bigger than World War II tanks. Like it's just ridiculous. But again, Long Defiant, like I understand, like this is what I'm talking about, Long Defiant. Like when I talk to an anarchist, I find myself going, correct, yep, that's right. What's the solution? What's the real, honest to God, like practical nuts and bolts? What can we do? Solution. What is it? That's what I'm talking about. Like I want to know what can we pursue? What goals can we do? Like how do we avoid the inevitable result of a capitalist state coming in and destroying whatever it is you're trying to build? How do we do that? And the only way that I can think of is by having a strong, powerful, centralized military force that can meet the capitalists. And that's just the hard practical reality of it. Like I would not want to be carpet bombed by these capitalists the way that they carpet bomb others. Bound, good to see you, Bound. Every society and age has had some kind of flex. Cars just happen to be this age's. Yeah, it's just happening on such a like stupid scale. It's the scale of it that makes it so stupid to me. Like, it's not like, hey, I have some rings. You're like, hey, I'm wearing bracelets. I've got all of this jewelry or this gold or something, right? It's literally like, or like tattoos. There's a good example of this. Like, it's literally like, I've got a car that's bigger than a World War II tank, and you have to accommodate that with big, gigantic infrastructure spending so we can have enormous highway systems. It's just the most ass-backwards shit. So, Long Defiant says, I already told you the solution. Build new systems of power, grow some food, train soldiers. So build a state, right? Have a state. Like, DJ paradigm shift. I think trying to push for special economic zones and trying different models. The Auravana project has made some books on how to transition from market and state into a market and state-free cities. Well, this is something interesting that has actually happened in China over the last couple of decades, is that because they're such a huge population, they're like 1.4 billion people, right? Because they're such a huge population, they're able to because they're such a huge population, they're able to run economic experiments in small areas that still encompass like 1 million people. You run an economic experiment on a single city block in Beijing, and it's like 1 million people. Like, and so they did, and they do, and they keep what works and they get rid of what doesn't work. And what I really admire about the Chinese is that they're not fundamentalists about this kind of stuff. Like, it really is just like, how do we get bread onto people's tables? Like, how do we make this thing work? And if it works, it works, and if it doesn't, it doesn't. And anytime they experiment with free market ideas, it doesn't work. Like, they were criticized by communists back in 2009 because they attempted to run some free market experiments in their healthcare system and allow private ownership of hospitals into their healthcare system under the promise, the Western promise, of course, of efficiency, and this model will work and all this kind of stuff. Failed almost immediately. Prices went up, everything was terrible, and so the state came in and took that away. And they were just like, well, we ran that experiment, that didn't work. And that, to me, is the true strength of the Chinese Communist Party and the Chinese, what they're doing over there, is that they're not fundamentalists the way that we are. Like, we're virulent fundamentalists, right? We literally think that anything other than the free market is demonic and wrong, right? Long Defiant writes, what part of that describes a state? The state is armed men. Like, that's the state. That's Lenin. Like that. Like that's what a state is. The state is a group of armed men that uphold the power of the ruling class. That's what the state is. And if the solution that anarchists come up with to defend themselves against other states that are going to come in is to have a group of armed men uphold the ruling system, then that's a state. Like it just is. And so this is kind of what I'm talking about with this. Like we kind of go in a circle, and it's the one thing that I'm just like with anarchists. I'm just like, okay, but we need like a large, well-regulated group of men to uphold the ruling system, right? Like if we don't have that, then they're just going to come over here, right? Hull writes, they, and I assume you're talking China with this, are basically practical and less brain-rotted by ideologies. Long Defiance says, too simplistic. I don't think so. I mean, I understand that there is like nuance to the argument, but fundamentally that's what the argument is. Like, you need to defend yourself from capitalists coming in and carpet bombing you. Like, how are you going to do that? Well, we'll have a big group of armed men. Okay, cool. So erect a state. Got it. Like, so I just am like, why fight that? Like, why fight? Why are we having the fight? Why is it this struggle of like, why don't we just acknowledge what it is, say this is what's required, this is the practical reality, and move forward like that, and say, okay, we need to do that. Because then we can at least say, okay, I'm not happy about this. Like, I'm not happy that we need to have a large group of armed men to defend ourselves against capitalists. But at least we can enshrine in our ideas and in our thoughts that we're doing this to defend ourselves and that we would like to diminish that power over time. Like we would like to, as the material conditions permit, we would like to be able to move in a direction where we can get rid of this state apparatus while simultaneously being safe from external pressures, right? Read Lenin, man. I don't know what to tell you. Like the state and revolution. It's like what I'm talking. It's not complex. Like armed people don't equal the state. Yeah. Yes, they do. Armed group of men are the state. That's Lenin. Like, that's what it is. Just because a group of people has an organizing principle doesn't mean that there is a state. I mean, if they are a heavily militarized group of people, organized in a way that a military should be organized, then that's a state. Like, it just is. Like, that's what it is. Like, I'm sorry. Yeah, June, the state, the institutions through which one class enforces its will on other classes. And like, the communist idea is that we have these things to defend ourselves, and then we want to move them towards a path of withering them away, right? Like that's the theory, and that's the hope. And again, it's worth restating. Like, this is not something that communists are cheerleading for. Like, I'm not sitting here being like, yeah, a state, hooray, yes, I can't believe, yes. Like, it's just something that we look at and go, I don't think that we have an alternative. And when people tend to offer an alternative, it's like, okay, so it's a state. Like, maybe it's a state that has slightly different configuration, but it's a state nonetheless. And that the communist position would be, we should adopt the state as it exists and wither it away from where it currently exists and have the conversations from where it currently exists. I'm not being reductionist. Like, this is what it is. Like, just because something is straightforward doesn't mean it's reductive. Like, it's, if you want to have a strong, powerful nation that can defend itself from capitalists, then you need groups of armed men and you need institutions to protect yourself. Like, it's just the truth. Like, I have no intention of being carpet bombed. Like, I have no intention of experiencing that or having my children experience that. DJ, good to see you. Long Defiance is what withered away under the USSR. I mean, the USSR is what withered away because they lean towards the West. Like I'm going through a book right now called Collapse. It is written by a Western capitalist, but it's essentially going. It most heavily focuses on Gorbachev and the Gorbachev years and the handoff to Yeltsin. And what's really clear is that they just abandoned the premise of communism generally. Like that communism didn't fail or collapse; it was clearly abandoned, and and what withered away was the Soviet Union. Like what withered away was the state of the Soviet Union. And then when it withered away, what happened? The free market capitalists came in, destroyed their economy, and now they're back on track now, basically. Long Defiance says, I don't want a nation. I think that's where the disconnect is. I think that what the disconnect is, or where our disagreement lay, is just simply between like what is hoped and what is possible. Like that really is what it is. And historically that has been the major disagreement between factions in the communist discourse, right? So like take the Maoists and the Dangists, right? That like the Maoists had hope for a vision of an idea, and the Dangists said, okay, but that's not going to happen. Like it's just not going to happen. And it's not going to happen for a lot of really good reasons. And so if you want to move forward, like I also would like there to not be a state. Like really, like I agree with you on that count. Like or a nation rather. I would rather there not be this concept of nations. I would rather there not be these hard borders and hard lines and border security, that kind of thing. I would rather we lived in a society where things were much more permeable and things were much more that we could the lines that we draw are more malleable, right? But we don't live in that society. We don't live in that. Like it'd be wonderful if we could get there. It'd be wonderful if we could make that happen. But it's going to be a longer road. Like it's not going to just happen. And there's going to be enemies. Like people are going to fight, right? Like Nazis exist. Like we're going to fight them. And it's just the kind of the hard reality of it. And it would be wonderful if we could convince our neighbors, hey, these borders, like, do we really need them? But are they going to say yes to that? Are they going to go along with that? Can we even successfully convince towns in our own provinces or states to go along with that idea? Oof. So it's a long road. And I tend, like, this is the thing when it comes to talking to anarchists. Like, I tend to agree with the vision. The vision, I'm like, yes, let's, I'm with you. But it's this getting there that has this disagreement. And, like, what, and so I just I circle back to my feeling. It's like, okay, well, if the idea is that we're going to have this alternative power structure, like, so we get away from the World Bank, we get away from the electoral system, we get away from these things, we have these alternative power systems, and that what we need to do to protect those alternative power systems is to have groups of armed men that can defend yourself from external threats, then I just think that we should just bite the bullet on that and just be like, okay, this is what it is. We're not happy about it, but this is what it is. And yeah, China isn't exactly reproducing what it's going against. Yeah, I mean, China. What's really interesting about China is, like, the proof will be in the pudding right now with China. Like, I think the criticisms towards China are accurate's not the right word, but the criticisms towards China, I think, are well met. That they could very well do the things that their critics say they will do. that it's very possible that China pulls this trigger and then becomes this imperialist state. Like it's completely possible that that does happen. But the proof is in the pudding, and the proof is going to be in the pudding starting right now. That China has built what it has currently from taking control of its manufacturing sector and through trade and diplomacy. And that the military situations and the military scenarios it finds itself embroiled in are fairly small in scale. Lots of border scuffles. China does a really good job of paying attention to its reputation. It understands that. Hamish writes, the one I keep my eye on is Russia. Honestly, Russia's going to be really interesting to watch when the new leader comes in. The next leader of Russia is the one that we should all pay attention to. Putin, I think, is it's too harsh to say that he's a spent force. That's too harsh. But he's definitely like he's done enough, and I think he just wants some stability at this point. Like he just wants things to sort of even out, and because fundamentally I think that Putin is a nationalist, that he just is like he just believes in Russia, and he just thinks that Russia should be Russia, and what's good for Russia is good for Russia, and he has that kind of ethos, and he has kind of like a gunslinging way about him where he doesn't he doesn't really have an ideology that moves beyond Russia is for Russia and I am the Russia of Russia, so Russia, and that's it. And I think history is going to have a really interesting view of Putin, and I'll be really interested to see somebody come out with some retrospective books about Putin, because Putin is a really interesting figure to me. But who's going to be really interesting is the guy that follows him up. That's going to be really interesting to see, and that's where Russia is going to really make because like Russia. It used to be the case that Russia, like in the Yeltsin-Gorbachev years, and even the Brezhnev years, and the Khrushchev years even, Russia was like moving away from China and moving away from the global south and moving towards Europe and moving towards North America. And it was doing that on purpose. There's like a clear agenda to do that. Whereas today's Russia under Putin is more willing to play all sides. That if they can get trade with Germany, let's say, like if they can get trade with Europe, they'll do it. But if they can get trade with China or India, they'll do it. So they're a lot more opportunist. I guess if I was to peg Putin with any kind of ism, it would be that he's just kind of an opportunist. That he wants Russia to be strong on the world stage. Long Defiant says, China is one bad emperor away from becoming a neoliberal hellhole. The entire project depends on one person. I mean, the way the structure of the National People's Congress works is that, like, Xi Jinping didn't take power because he wielded a sword and slayed his enemies, right? Like, he took power because the consensus within the National People's Congress was that he would be the best leader. And there's a pretty long path you have to take to becoming the leader of China. What makes this moment so interesting, like the handoff from Mao to Deng was full of turmoil. It was very tumultuous. Like the Cultural Revolution was a serious thing. Mao was a revolutionary, but where you can criticize Mao the most is through his governance. It's difficult to criticize Mao as a revolutionary leader because, first of all, he was successful in his revolutionary pursuit. And people really loved him, which is why I think that when he had his missteps as the governor of China, people were really forgiving and people really went along with it because he was so well loved in China. And so the handoff from Mao to Deng is full of turmoil. The Cultural Revolution, the Vietnam War, just like these incredible, the Sino-Soviet split, like these incredible moments, right? And then after the handoff from Mao to Deng happens, you have Deng and then Jintao and Zemin. I'm for sure mispronouncing these guys. But the two leaders that follow up Deng was still alive when these guys were around. And so there's like a consensus there. Xi Jinping is very interesting because he's the first leader to really be picked by the assembly, by the National People's Congress, and who goes through the process. Deng didn't like put his hand on his shoulder and say, "You're the guy." And so this next era of Chinese politics is going to be very, very interesting because likely what's going to happen is that Xi Jinping is going to eventually retire, right? Like he's quite old already, and he's in his third term, which is rare. Like you have to go back to Mao to get that. And it's unlikely he'll do a fourth. And so we are going to see the next leader, and it'll likely be somebody that Xi Jinping has essentially handpicked, the way that Deng Xiaoping hand-selected leaders, his predecessor, his next leader. And so we're going to have a period where like Xi Jinping is there as like a behind-the-shadows leader, but there's going to be this front person. And then that guy might actually just be replaced, and people will say he's a ruler by consensus. Right? That's what they said of previous leadership. And eventually Xi Jinping dies. And then when Xi Jinping dies, it's like that's going to be the next phase in the next era of Chinese governance. Like, you're not wrong. And I think this is correct to say that if the Chinese get infected by capitalist thought at the highest level and they lose control, like if the fire gets out of the fireplace, and start sweeping through China, free market capitalism becomes the ethos of the day. Yeah, China could be a real Leviathan. Like a real Leviathan. But I think that the structure of the National People's Congress and the ideas surrounding the National People's Congress have up until this point been quite vigilant against that idea. And so I find it very difficult to believe that a single person is going to just sweep through the ranks of the National People's Congress and then suddenly be the leader of China and be saying things like, we need more capitalism. Like I find that to be difficult to believe considering the history of the National People's Congress and who these people are and how they act currently against capitalists. Like these guys are like arresting capitalists and like executing them and finding people who are taking bribes within their ranks and executing them. Like they're not fucking around. So I tend to agree though. Like there is a big we'll see. It's completely possible that they'll turn the corner and then all of a sudden China will be going to Australia and bombing the shit out of Australia and like going into India and trying to take over India and dominate India. But until that actually starts to happen, all we really have is a speculation that it could. I don't really see any evidence of it. Like I don't really see any evidence for that actually happening. Because I think doing so would be completely counterintuitive to China's current ambitions and goals and aims. Like going to war with their neighbors would mean that the whole Belt and Road Initiative would be threatened. Their whole strategy is to become the manufacturing center for the world, to really make it so that people can't get rid of them. That cutting off China would mean cutting off your supply of manufactured goods. Like that's China's whole strategy. And that stems from their understanding of Marxism, which is that the means of production, that's where power lives. The power is in your ability to make things and create things. And China's really doubled down on that idea. Like to the point now where the Americans are saying, we should do that. We got to get in on that. And like Trump's tariffs, he'll say that. We'll bring manufacturing back to America. And it's like, okay, bud, that's going to take like decades. It's going to take like decades and decades for manufacturing, even if you did it by mandate, even if you said, Even if you convince the Congress and the Senate and the Supreme Court and the presidency and everybody all at once in one tandem all said, we need to build manufacturing here in America and we're going to spend hundreds of billions of dollars to do it. We're going to spend hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars to do it. Even if you did that, it would take you decades. And they're not doing that. What are they doing? Free market capitalism. That'll solve the problem. And Hamish writes, of Russia, it has an old tendency for Europe, but it has grown beyond the Eurasian alliance to a broader multinational arrangement in BRICS. Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, no, Russia's in an interesting position. Like it's if it's smart, and if the ruling class actually cares about Russia, they'll actually they'll actually build up their own manufacturing base. Like that's the thing. That's what China's running with. Like that's what China's exploding on, is that they have this enormous, powerful manufacturing base. Like they're to a point now where if they get into a naval battle, let's say they get into a naval battle with America, right? And America's Navy and China's Navy goes at each other. And let's say they just blow each other up and they blow each other to pieces. Well, China's going to be able to rebuild their military twice as fast, or their Navy rather, twice as fast as the Americans are. Because Chinese shipbuilding is just outrageous. They literally account for half the world's shipbuilding. It's insane. And so maybe the Americans could defeat China in the first wave, but not the second, certainly not the third, which would happen and would come. And so it's China has just really grabbed hold of, we need to build stuff, and we need to have things built. JT writes, what about First Nations and that, though? Those people bans existed before, too. But really, this is all semantics, because communism is doing what anarchism claims to have sole credit for. I don't know that I understand your comment fully, so I don't think I'm going to comment on it, yeah. Mark Jr. writes, a lot of common ground between communism and anarchism, for sure. For sure there is. No, there is a lot of common ground. And that's what I prefer to focus on. Because, like, through the conversation we just had, like, we kind of can come to a place where we can agree that, like, yeah, we should have a defensive group. We should have people who are there to defend the gains that we have made. Jefferson writes, not even a week after China signed many deals with South American countries, the U.S. is already talking about Hezbollah terrorists in Venezuela, Brazil, about Russian spies in Brazil. Yeah, because the only edge that America has going into the Chinese century, the only edge they actually have is their spy network, right? Their intelligence network, their propaganda network, right? Like that's their big edge. Russia doesn't have that to the same scale, to the same level, and China doesn't have that to the same scale, to the same level, right? The American military is losing a lot of prestige. It's losing a lot of its capacity and ability because the American military has been, it's bloated itself administratively. Like we're spending $1 trillion, like the Americans are spending $1 trillion on their military, but most of this is administrative, right? Maintaining the military bases they have. And a lot of their military hardware and a lot of their military gear has been built with the idea of fighting terrorist cells across the Middle East. Like the aircraft carrier, I think, is like the greatest example of this. An aircraft carrier makes a whole lot of sense if your opponent doesn't have the capacity to knock it out, right? China has the capacity to knock out an aircraft carrier. For sure. For sure it does. It has that capacity. And so if you rolled an aircraft carrier up to China, they just shoot it with their missile systems. And that would be the end of that aircraft carrier. But an aircraft carrier makes a lot of sense if you can just put it in the Gulf of Aqaba and like terrorize the Egyptians or the Iraqis with fighter jets and bomber jets from the sky, and they can't do anything about it, right? So what we have is like an American military that is bloated, that is primarily administrative, and whose military hardware isn't really designed to fight modern military forces in a place like China. So China is now recognizing this. Like that's the part about the conversation that's getting really scary for the West and really scary for China's neighbors, frankly, is that China now does have a military force that there is no other military force on the planet that can really stand up against it. Like, the Chinese likely, if the Chinese are smart, they're not going to embroil themselves in long-term, like Vietnam-style, or this genocide in Gaza kind of thing, where they're attempting to suppress people to attain whatever goal they think will be successful. No, the Chinese are wisely saying, no, we have this force so that the Americans can't fuck with us. And we're willing to trade. We're willing to trade and negotiate with people. Good to see you, Radio Halifax. JT writes, I even still would rather not have some individuals' name like Lenin or Marx tied to any ideology too, but I can't deny the reality of its adoption and use. Yeah, Putin is an interesting figure. Mark writes, I try my best to keep critics from AES in the East being an American myself. I just don't understand the tension between China and Vietnam, though. It's probably the biggest side eye to the PRC. I don't know that I understand that comment because China and Vietnam are like making peace deals with one another. The tensions historically existed between China and Vietnam because the Americans got involved in Vietnam and took over. So, am I getting that right? The Americans took over South Vietnam, and it was North Vietnam that was allied to the Chinese, which made Vietnam a proxy war between China and America. And so that's where your tensions come from. And then, and then after the Vietnam War ended, it is absolutely the truth that after the Vietnam War ended, the Chinese attempted to move in and take Vietnam. That absolutely happened. And then the Vietnamese were like, nope, get the fuck out of here, China. And China went, okay. And they left, right? And so there's tensions there for sure. But those tensions, I think, are in a state of dissipation. That the relationship between China and Vietnam currently seems to be similar to the relationship that exists between America and Canada. That we all know that the Americans, if they really wanted to, could come up here and do a whole lot of damage and do a whole lot of stuff. And so we make it amicable. We make it so they don't really have to do that. Which is why what Trump did was so grotesque to us. Because we had really good relations going on, and we were not really fighting with one another. And then all of a sudden Trump is talking about annexing us. And it's like, get fucked, you fucking daft old man. You'll notice that that's all kind of dissipated now, and that's all kind of gone. And I think it's because Mark Carney came in and was like, yeah, that's not going to happen. Yeah, Joe's right. One of the biggest mistakes ever allowed to happen, outsourcing so much of our means of production, for sure. Well, I mean, it is a testament to, if I wanted to be generous to the Americans and to the West generally, they were running on an economic theory that turned out to be wrong. That the relationship between America and China, down to the fundamentals, you have like the Milton Friedman libertarian economic theory, neoliberalism, right? And that comes from the Chicago boys and the whole concept of shock therapy and the whole concept of trickle-down economics and all this kind of stuff, right? You have an economic theory that comes out of the Chicago schools of economics. And if we wanted to be nice, we could believe that that was legitimate, that they really did believe in that. And they like in the same way that the people who believed in phrenology really believed in it, right? It wasn't them trying to scam anybody. They literally were just like, oh, the shape of a human skull can determine their behavior, right? And we have a whole scientific theory on this, and we're writing these treaties. The Queen Victoria is listening to us at a symposium and all of this, right? In the same way, you have these Chicago boys, and they present a theory of economics. And now that theory of economics has been tried in the real world, and it has ruddered up against the theory of economics that has come out of China, which is more rooted in Marxism. uh, and it's pretty clear who the winner is, right? It's pretty clear which theory of economics uh, uh, holds more weight and holds more water. That the theory of the West was that economic primacy exists within the financial sector, the power of the dollar, right? Financial power is what makes an economy strong. Whereas the Chinese theory was manufacturing power is what makes an economy strong. The ability to create things makes an economy strong. And these two ideas smashed into one another, and the Chinese idea won. And it's not close. Like it's not close at all. Like we're at a point now where the Americans literally can't do anything about it. That how the Americans have been acting since World War II is basically just go around and destroy whoever disagrees with us. Anybody tries to do anything that is out of step with the way that we view the world will literally destroy them. Like Libya, Yemen, Iraq, Afghanistan, like the assassination of Thomas Sankara, these sorts of things. Like we'll just overthrow your government. We'll just murder your leadership. We'll literally carpet bomb you if we have to. And but now they've got an enemy that they can't do any of that with, and they're completely unprepared to deal with it because their theory of economics, which is now a religious ideology because it's not rooted in any science I'm aware of, it has rendered them incapable of acknowledging, right? Like if you believe that you have primacy, and if you believe that you are in first place and you're going to stay in first place because your theory is correct and your ideas are correct, well, then you kind of end up being blinded by the legitimate rising power. And the Americans genuinely believed that China was just going to become like them, that they were going to buy into this idea of financial power, that they were going to join the World Trade Organization, they were going to join the World Bank, they were going to join all these organizations, and that financial power was going to overwhelm China, and that the financialization of China's economy was going to lead to a rise of capitalism within China, and it just didn't happen. And it didn't happen because the Chinese system acknowledged first and foremost that power comes from productive capacity, from manufacturing, the ability to build things. That and in many ways it connects to what Mao said about power. Power flows from the end of a barrel of a gun. Well, if you can make 5 times the amount of guns as your enemy and you have 5 times the population as your enemy, you know, that math seems to work in China's favor. And yeah, it is one of the biggest mistakes ever that was allowed to happen, but it was because it was a scientific theory that ended up being debunked, and instead of having the theory be debunked and then moving forward with theories that actually work, the Americans doubled down on it, and now it's a religion. Like if the phrenologists had their theory disproven and then didn't give it up and created a whole institution of phrenology, that would be a cult. Like that would be a religious organization if you wanted to be polite. Because it's not rooted, there's no evidence for it. It's the same thing with neoliberalism. It's the same thing with Milton Friedman and his ideas, that he was wrong. And we can see that he was wrong. June writes, a single Chinese state-owned shipbuilder produced more commercial vessels by tonnage in 2024 than the entire U.S. industry has since World War II. Right? Right? Like, you hear that kind of thing and you're just like, oh. Like, and meanwhile, like, what's America doing with its wealth? Like, what's America actually doing with its wealth? It's blowing up Gaza. That's what it's doing. It's dropping more ordnance on Gaza than they did on Germany in World War II. Like, it's taking the wealth of its nation and it's just throwing it down black holes, never to be seen again. It's not building any infrastructure. It's not designing anything. It's not creating anything. Like, look on the screen now and you'll see what capitalist innovation has become in America, right? Uber to introduce fixed route shuttles in major U.S. cities designed for commuters. And the response from this guy is, are you fucking kidding me? So the innovation that Uber is making is, drum roll please, buses. Whoa. I'm so glad we went through this incredible capitalist innovation machine to get to buses. Yeah. Hamish is writing, China in war footing can produce the total missile stock of the collective West in a week. Yeah. China has given economic reassurances to Vietnam to help against U.S. tariffs. U.S. tariffs are crushing for Vietnam. Yeah, the tariffs are just such a bad idea. Like, it's so clear that these Americans are deeply out of touch with reality. Like, why are you putting tariffs on any of this stuff? It doesn't actually make sense from the American perspective. All it's going to do is accelerate the decline of the West. Yeah, outsourcing so much of our means of production. JT writes, yeah, I'm projecting a bit with my criticism because I'm figuring things out myself too. Sure. Mark writes, yes, South Vietnam was under American similar to Korea, yeah. June writes, Chinese aid to Vietnam during the war was even less than Soviet aid. I think that just comes down to, like, China doesn't have that many resources at that time. Like, the Vietnam War begins very shortly after the creation of the People's Republic of China. Like, one of the reasons the Great Leap Forward happens is to rapidly industrialize and get as many resources from the society as they could, right? That's the whole purpose of the Great Leap Forward. Like, it's not like they did it on a lark. It's not like they thought to themselves, oh, this is a nice, happy idea for us to pursue, la, la, la. Like, I think that they were desperate and terrified, and that they were in a rush to actually see if they could get resources to defend against what was going on. Like, it's always wild to me that we're just completely not discussing, like, the Korean War, the Vietnam War, like the nuclear bombardment of Nagasaki and Hiroshima, like the consequences of World War II on China. Like, these people were experiencing, like, wide scale, large war, industrialized warfare, and they were like a peasant agrarian economy. They didn't have the capacity to build, like, World War II level tanks and stuff. They didn't have it. They just didn't have it. And so the idea that, like, so these people are like, if I'm a Chinese person seeing what's going on around China and in the world around me, I'm like, these Americans are going to come in and they're going to do to us what they're doing to Vietnam. They're going to do to us what they did to Korea. They're going to do that to us. They're going to do to us what they did to Japan. They're going to do that. So Mao is saying, everybody get your steel. Everybody find every little scrap you can find. Yeah. Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm going to do that. Right? It's, I think that the people of China were largely terrorized. And I think that Mao is no exception to that. I think that Mao is also terrorized. Like, it's pretty clear they were in a panic. June writes, they were absolutely not a proxy of China. Like, China does send resources to Vietnam. Like, you're correct to point out that certainly from the Western perspective, it's seen as a proxy war with Russia. That the Vietnam War was seen as a proxy war with Russia, but China is there. And China is involved. Like, it's not like China didn't send resources to Vietnam. Like, and the threat of war on China is real. That's a real thing that people are really concerned about. So, like, is it like China is pulling the puppet strings of the North Vietnamese and is ruling the party? Like, no, clearly, but China does send, like, hundreds of thousands of weapons. Like, there's clearly China is clearly supporting one side over the other. They're not trying to maintain neutrality. Yeah, Mark is nailing it here, right? Vietnam has to be one of the baddest nations to ever exist. Cuba too, but damn, Vietnamese are strong people. Yeah, like, yeah, they'd have to be, dude. Like, this is what I think about the North Koreans as well. Like, Jesus, like they experiencing what they experienced and basically rebuilding by themselves with like a little bit of support from China, but China is also in a state of developing and building its own economy. Uh, uh, it's pretty wild. Like, it's pretty wild to think about. And Mark says Americans say that Chinese copy everything. Americans are trying to reinvent the wheel for the 10th time. Yeah. Baldy, good to see you, my man. AC writes, no, that has to do with the Sino-Soviet split. Vietnam was chummy with the USSR. Yeah, I mean, and I suspect it was chummy with the USSR because the USSR could send them more resources. Like, the USSR was more developed than China. It's just a simple. It's just a simple truth. Mark writes, China's role in World War II is downplayed to absurd levels in the West. Yeah, well, they're not part of the narrative, right? They're just not there. And I think it is largely because we have this hyperfixation on technology. There's a like we look at tanks, planes, naval ships, the nuclear bomb, right? Like World War II is really a pivotal war. It's like a pivotal war in human history. Like, it's the introduction of industrialized war machines that had never really been done on that scale. Like, you can find an example of a plane dropping a bomb, right, somewhere. But to have like these bombing runs and these napalm runs and these artilleries and the trench warfare and all of just like the new technology. And so we have this tendency to hyper focus on the technology side of the conversation. Nobody gives a shit about a bunch of guys going in there with just like one-shot bolt rifles, dying in waves and waves. Like, the Chinese lost 20 million people in that war. They lost as many people as the Russians did fighting against the Nazis in direct combat, right? And nobody pays any attention to that at all. It's just completely obliterated from our history. And then we turn to China, and then we discuss something like the Great Leap Forward, and it's like there's absolutely no understanding of like the scale of terror. Like, that's what I'm trying to really instill in people and try to get them to think about a little bit more, is that like the Chinese are not operating in a vacuum, right? They're existing under a state of heightened terror, and like this concept of I just think about like, man, your neighbor just got nuked twice. Like, your neighbor just got nuked twice. Like, that's gonna put you in a tizzy. You're not just gonna walk away from that. You're not just gonna be like, oh well, that happened. La 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 la. Like you're a Smurf or something. Like, it's gonna scar you. You're gonna think about it. Baldy, yeah. Kanye West normalizing Nazism was not on my 2025 bingo card. Yeah, dude, his track that he released where he's like got that Heil Hitler thing, like, we should put this guy in jail, right? Like, I don't think this is a free speech issue. Like, you are actively terrorizing people. You are actively threatening violence on people by evoking that kind of language. And the idea that you're not is childish. But like, I don't know. We're living in this environment. Like, these are actual ads right here from oilwell.app. Meditate through the meltdown. Relax into climate chaos. Breathe in denial. Exhale responsibility. Meditate through the meltdown. I want to believe that this oil well app is like a parody. I want to believe that, but it's hard. It's so hard. So hard to find out what is or is not parody or satire. Like, satire and parody are so dead right now. Yeah, streamers are playing a huge role in normalizing Nazism, for sure. Like, I mean, you've got guys like Asmongold, Destiny, this Ethan Klein situation. Like, these guys are normalizing Nazism, is what they're doing. Yeah, I hope these ads are fake, yeah. Like, I also hope that, but I bet you anything. If I go oilwell.app, oop, relax. It's only the climate crisis. Oilwell is a wellness app to help you embrace climate chaos. Created by Edelman Oil and Gas PR. Like, these guys should go to jail, right? Like, these guys should go to jail. Right? Like, we should be like this is some Goebbels shit right here. Edelman is a multinational American public relations and marketing consultancy firm. The company was founded in 1952 and named after its founder, Daniel Edelman. Like, I wonder if controversies. I knew it. Look at this. Look at the controversy list. Okay. Controversies. Edelman has a history of establishing astroturf campaigns, seemingly grassroots groups that are fronts for industry, for its clients. The company has created front groups and advised clients to plant articles, letters, and opinion pieces that appear to be spontaneous testimonials. The Microsoft antitrust in 1998, the Los Angeles Times reported that Edelman had drafted a campaign plan to ensure the state's attorney general did not join antitrust legal actions against Microsoft. The Working Families for Walmart front group. In the 2000s, Edelman created a front group called the Working Families for Walmart, which said it was a grassroots organization, but it was actually funded by Walmart. Fossil fuel companies and climate change deniers. According to the Washington Post, Edelman's work with the fossil fuel industry has been under scrutiny for years. According to a 2021 study, Edelman is a major factor in the climate issue arena. So, like, yeah, these guys should go to jail, right? The private prison industry, right? Supported private prison company GEO Group and helped in laundering the reputation of private U.S. concentration camps. Saudi PR. The firm has provided services to the government of Saudi Arabia. They have contracts worth about $9.6 million signed over 4 years up to 2022. Freedom House has named the kingdom as one of the worst of the worst. Like, this is what you would do to parody how oil companies would act. Like, parody is dead, right? Like, there's no how do you satirize this? Like, what do you do? Like, the only thing that you could do is actually, like, tell a story about a person who is like this, who is meditating through, like, a fire that's around them, and just being like, everything's fine. What is this except a group of people literally choking you, like literally wrapping their hands around your neck and choking you to death, going, shh, 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 it'll be over soon. Shh. Isn't that what this is? Like taking a pillow and putting it over your face so you can't breathe and just going, shh, shh, everything will be fine. Everything will be fine. Shh, shh. Isn't that what this is? Meditate through the climate crisis. Yeah, John, good to see you. Oddity, good to see you too, my man. The old snake eating its tail. Smog breathing exercise. Let go of your attachment to breathable air. Drought meditation. Turn a cluttered mind into a barren, empty space. Lifeless rock visualization. Make peace with an inevitable future. Endless growth affirmation. Breathe in profit. Breathe out responsibility. Third eye of the storm. Experience category 5 relaxation. Drowning mindfully. Learn to float with the rising tide. Drift off to climate chaos. Blend the sounds of extreme weather to make your perfect good night noise. Start mixing. Sleep tip, place an oil barrel under your pillow. They literally have, guys, they literally have a sound for screams and sirens. These people are demons. This whole thing is something a demon would make. Like, they're clearly making fun of you. Right? Like, they're clearly making fun of you. Yeah, I can only imagine the young giggling Musk-type Nazis behind this. Yeah. While we learn to accept climate chaos, Elderman has been busy pumping out PR for its oil and gas clients. Now let's meditate on what we can do. Let's drill deeper, everyone. Fossil fuels are making us unwell. From air pollution to extreme weather to the spread of tropical diseases, the climate crisis is a health crisis. Eidelman has ignored... Oh, hold on. Oh, this is actually a parody. Oh, thank God. Thank God. Hold on. I need to know more. Hold on. Is this all a parody? Help those seek endless growth, power through climate, PR. We help those value truth. I don't know if it is, though, what our users say. No, this has to be a parody. It's too on the nose. It's just the Eidelman Trust Barometer. This is the problem I have. I'm like, how is this? I don't even know. Made by serious people. Like, oh my God, I can't even tell. This is the problem I'm having. I can't even tell. Is this a real thing? Part of the Glimpse Collective? Where people choose love. Our work showed glimpses of a greener, kinder, and more connected world. Like, what this feels like is... What this feels like is what Matt Christman landed on, which is Zen fascism, right? The concept of Zen fascism, which is, and like here's a real story that's actually happening, which makes things so confusing for me. Yeah. Destroying Gaza with love, Israel's new yogi Nazis. And it all has this kind of sense of this Zen fascism, this idea that people are just going to, and people do, just admit that, like, okay, fine, yeah, we colonized this place, we committed a genocide against the people who are here, we stole their resources, we did slavery, all of that, okay, but we created this overwhelming bounty. We created this overwhelming amount of good or resources for ourselves. We should just enjoy it. Can't you just shut up about what happened in the past and just enjoy what we have? Right? Why do we have to sully it? Why do we have to, like, why are we talking about justice? Like, why are we talking about truth and reconciliation? Why are we talking, like, who cares? Like, can't we just eat burgers and like go on roller coaster rides and have a good time with what we have? Like, why are we wasting our time with any of that? And that's this concept that Matt Christman coined, which is Zen fascism. That we admit it, and now it's just shut up and eat the burger. Like, what's the problem? Why are we trying to, like, what? Don't you think it's crazy that we can't enjoy it? Like, that is the philosophy of the Zen fascist. Yeah, parody versus reality, indistinguishable from one another. Like, it's just what a fucking disaster. Well, and like, the climate crisis is like a legitimate disaster. Like, we're going to. Oh, dude, this article. I'm actually going to read this one right now because this article is so like, how do I know we're totally fucked as a species? Like, how do I know that the West is actually going to bring this place down? How do I know? Because there are groups of people that are actually discussing whether or not we should blot out the sun. Just like the people who are even suggesting it, we should be throwing them off a cliff. This is an article from swissinfo.ch, Climate Solutions. Is playing with the sun to fight climate change worth the risk? Reflecting the sun's rays back to space to prevent climate change, known as solar geoengineering, is as controversial as it is intriguing. SWI swissinfo.ch explains all there is to know about this Plan B. We have a Plan A? What's the Plan A for the climate that is dividing the scientific community? Last year was the warmest year on record globally, with the impact of climate change increasingly evident. Glaciers are melting. Sea levels are rising. Extreme events such as droughts and floods are becoming more frequent. After the announcement of the Trump administration to withdraw the United States from the Paris Agreement, the goal of limiting climate warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius appears increasingly out of reach. Yeah, no shit. This has put solar radiation modification technologies, long considered taboo, as they raise ethical questions without addressing the origins of climate change, back at the forefront of research. Private foundations in countries such as the US, Britain, and China have invested tens of millions of dollars in research projects to reflect the sun's rays back to space. I just cannot imagine being this fucking narcissistic and stupid. Like, companies such as U.S. startup Make Sunsets have already started outdoor experiments, and new projects are planned for this year. Cape Town, South Africa will host the largest conference to date on SRM in May 12th to 16th. Researchers, NGO representatives, and policymakers will discuss the scientific, social, and political aspects of so-called solar geoengineering. SRM has always been a question of when it will be deployed, not if. Gernot Wagner, fucking Nazi, climate economist, author, co-founder of Harvard University's Solar Geoengineering Research Program. Oh, good, it's in Harvard. Fantastic. Sadly, what has been happening since noon on January 20th has only made eventual deployment more likely, Wagner says, referring to Donald Trump's second term as president. What are solar radiation modification technologies? SRM technologies are deliberate, large-scale climate interventions that aim to reduce global warming. There are essentially two ways to change the effect the sun's rays have on the planet: increase the reflection of the sunlight back to space, or reduce the Earth's absorption of solar radiation. I cannot even begin to tell you how stupid this all is. Like, nothing convinces me that our systems have discredited themselves more than this. Yeah, the problem is the sun. We gotta do something about the sun. Those in favor of SRM technologies argue that they represent the only sustainable option for rapidly returning the planet's temperature to near pre-industrial levels at relatively low cost, right? It's always that. It's always like, well, we got to make sure the rich people keep their money. Like they got to make sure that this is a good investment for the rich. We have to constantly be considering and constantly thinking about what the rich people think about this instead of rounding them all up and taking their assets away from them. The Earth reflects about 30% of the solar energy it receives. Increasing this reflectivity by even 1% could reduce the globe's average temperature by about 1 degree Celsius, according to one study. The scientific world agrees that urgent and drastic reductions in CO2 emissions are imperative to counter climate change. SRM supporters say solar geoengineering would buy time while waiting to reach net zero emissions. It would also mitigate some of the impacts of global warming, such as rising sea levels. How is it possible to reflect sunlight back to space? The most researched method is the injection of aerosols into the atmosphere, stratospheric aerosol injection, or SAI. Aerosols are microscopic particles that can reflect solar radiation back to space, reducing the temperature on the ground. Planes or balloons would release billions of sulfur dioxide molecules into the atmosphere. Sulfur dioxide! Sulfur! These people are demons. We're making hell. Like, it's right in front of you. And not even in like a religious way. Not even in like, the devil is taking over and Jesus Christ's return is coming at any moment. Not even any of that. We're literally, materially putting sulfur into our atmosphere to block out the divine radiance of the sun so that rich people can hold on to their money. We are stupid. This is desperately stupid. It doesn't get stupider. This is something that a moron would think. I have no hope for this species. Like, we are going to obliterate ourselves. Like, and all we could have done is just keep eating bananas and be chill. We could have just kept chilling out. Everything would have been fine. Instead, we got to put sulfur dioxide into the atmosphere. This would lead to the formation of aerosols and create a kind of thin reflective layer around the Earth. The same phenomenon occurs naturally during major volcanic eruptions. In 1991, the ash and sulfur dioxide released from the Pinatubo eruptions in the Philippines caused the planet to cool by 0.5 degrees Celsius for 2 years. According to a recent Swiss study on the release of aerosols into the atmosphere, the use of solid particles would be more efficient than sulfur dioxide. Calcite, or diamond dust, would have a greater ability to reflect sunlight and a lower environmental impact, according to one study. The other more advanced SRM technology is marine cloud brightening. Special cannon mounted on ships spray a mixture of seawater into the atmosphere. The salt crystals facilitate the formation of brighter clouds over the oceans. These clouds reflect more sunlight, protecting coral reefs from high temperatures. So you're going to burn fossil fuels to spray seawater at the sunlight so you don't have to stop burning fossil fuels. Fucking morons. Painted streets and rooftops white also increase the portion of sunlight reflected back to space. Bright surfaces can make cities more livable during heat waves. Another option, which is still theoretical, is to place giant mirrors in space to reflect solar radiation before it reaches Earth. Finally, there is also the possibility of dispersing microparticles into cirrus clouds to make them thinner. Cirrus are high-altitude clouds that can trap heat radiated from Earth's surface. Like, man, do you think that there's anything on Earth that requires sunlight? Do you think there's anything that like needs sunlight in order to work? At what stage is the development of SRM technologies? Solar geoengineering remains mostly a theoretical approach for now, like eugenics, right? However, research programs on SRM are increasing, and several projects are already conducting outdoor experiments. Make Sunset says it already sent 147 balloons filled with sulfur dioxide molecules into the atmosphere. In Australia, Southern Cross University has been studying the effects of artificial cloud brightening on the Great Barrier Reef since 2020. If humanity as a whole or group of powerful and sufficiently rich countries exists, that stratospheric aerosol injection on a global scale is a necessity. It can be rolled out in a few years, says Claudia Wieners, assistant professor of climate physics at Utrecht University in the Netherlands. Building the atomic bomb was more difficult, she says. So she refers to another catastrophe that humanity unleashed upon itself. Why is solar geoengineering controversial? Oh my god, dude. We're so done. Like, we're so stupid. Good to see you, my man. Like, this is stupid. Like, this is stupidity at the highest possible level, right? Like, we're so stupid. The smartest people around us are the dumbest people you've ever met. SRM can lower temperatures, but it doesn't reduce the amount of greenhouse gases we emit into the atmosphere. It therefore addresses the symptoms and not the causes of the climate crisis. Those who oppose it see solar geoengineering as a loophole that distracts from the real goal of cutting emissions. SRM will project false hopes that we can tech our way out of the crisis. Zhaoshan Yap, a policy advisor at the Space Center of the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology, Lausanne, told the Swiss magazine Horizons. The risk, she adds, is that politicians will backpedal on their commitment to cut greenhouse gas emissions. Maybe also the fact that you're tinkering with forces for which you know nothing about. That, like, we've just gotten to the point where we've, like, diagnosed the problem, and instead of, like, pulling back, like, we've put our hand on a hot oven, and instead of going, and pulling our hand off of the oven, we're going, yeah, this is human nature. This is the only thing that we can do. We just deserve it. We deserve what's coming. Like, we do. We just deserve it. The injection of aerosols into the atmosphere could also have unexpected impacts on climate, precipitation patterns, and the environment. Oh, you think? You think putting sulfur dioxide into the atmosphere will have negative consequences, such as the fact that they are harmful to health and cause acid rain? You fucking losers. You fucking dim-witted morons. Let's put sulfur in the atmosphere. That won't do anything bad. Is sulfur related to anything in human history? If you wanted to make, like, let's say, I don't know, a hell dimension, is sulfur involved in that? I have a PhD from Harvard. This plan B for climate change also raises fundamental questions. Who should decide when and where to deploy SRM? Who would be responsible in case of harmful side effects? And what would happen in case of premature termination of a project, for example, due to a war? There are no globally shared rules. More than 500 researchers in Switzerland and around the world have joined an international call for a ban on social geoengineering, solar, blah, 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 blah. Just imagine Elon Musk with this. Just imagine some dim-witted apartheid baby loser being like, we have to put sulfur dioxide in the atmosphere for the future of humanity. Nazi salute. They want no public funds to be invested in SRM and all outdoor experiments to be banned. Yeah, thank you. Don't fuck with the sun. In contrast, Sandro Vittioni, a climate researcher at Federal Technology Institute, ETH Zurich, calls for more research and more experiments, purely scientific and on a small scale. Let's just do a little eugenics, you guys. Vattioni is an author of the diamond dust study mentioned earlier and will be one of the speakers at the SRM conference in Cape Town. We need to study these technologies, including the potential negative effects, should we decide we need them. He tells SWI Swissinfo.ch. A moratorium on SRM that allows for research into the science and politics of such a project is the most reasonable solution, according to Wieners. A unilateral deployment of SRM would be highly undesirable because it could lead to conflicts between countries. Yeah, why would it lead to conflicts between countries? Because it will cause famines, you dumbass. Plants need sunlight to grow, you fucking losers. You put sulfur dioxide in the atmosphere, what do you think's gonna happen? Like, I don't, what is Switzerland's, Switzerland is actively pursuing SRM. We gotta arrest these people, man. Like, we need to create organizations to go find these people and put them in jail cells. Like, this is, we are stupid. Right? Anybody want to try to tell me that we're not just a bunch of stupid monkeys? Like, this is stupidity at the highest possible level. We are dumbasses. We're literally, like, we know what's causing the problem. Like, and moreover, we know who is causing the problem. We know where the problem is coming from. Right? Unsurprisingly, it's rich people. It's rich people flooding the atmosphere with carbon dioxide. Like, a recent study published in the journal Nature Climate Change has found that the richest 10% of the world population are responsible for an astonishing 2/3 of observable climate warming since 1990. Basically, that small minority of the wealthiest among us contribute nearly 7 times as much to extreme climate change as the entire lower-earning 90% of the planet. Like, if that's not enough to have you reaching for your pitchfork, the top 1% contribute 20 times as much to climate disasters as the bottom 99%. Since 2019, the research article notes the wealthiest 10% of the global population accounted for nearly half of global emissions through private consumption and investments, whereas the poorest 50% accounted for only 1/10 of global emissions. The results were developed by fusing climate change models with economic data, which allowed researchers to zero in on rates of toxic emissions from various income groups throughout the globe. By linking climate change with the economy, they found the source of these emissions, blah, 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 blah. What are you guys writing? I read that article yesterday. This LaFair woman is Satan's avatar. Yeah, it's, I mean, like, if I died and it turned out, like, and I got to talk to somebody and be like, so what was going on Earth? And they said to me, like, in 1967, we opened up a dimension to hell. And the demons started taking over key infrastructure pieces. I'd be like, oh, yeah, okay, that explains a lot. That actually explains a lot. That, like, oh, demons took over. Oh, okay. That makes sense. And they're, like, actively trying to turn the place into hell. June writes, in 1926, Dare released one of his most famous articles, The Swine as Criterion for Nordic Peoples and Semites, in which he first laid forth his theory on settled races and nomads, which would later be the basis of his blood and soil ideology. In the article, Dare explained that to properly rear domestic pigs, a person had to be rooted in one area because the domestic pig is not capable of living a highly mobile or nomadic lifestyle. Dare argued that Jews' aversion to pork stemmed from the fact that they were nomadic and for this reason were incapable of rearing pigs. Therefore, Dare's main argument was the domestic pig gives us clear evidence that Nordic peoples were settled races and that Jews' rejection of the same animal proves their nomadism just as clearly. What a loser. Like, what a fucking loser. Like, just Jesus Christ. Imagine spending your whole life studying that. It'd be like, I don't know, studying how to blot the sun out. Be just as stupid as that. JT right, I sure picked a good time to cure myself of deep-seated depression. Yeah, I'm done with depression. Like, it's... I just sort of like I've just accepted that the humans are going to kill themselves and that they're doing it on purpose and that they want to. And that's just all there is to it. New CIA drone pilot writes, Switzerland, aiding rich criminals for over a century. Yeah. Yeah, brighter clouds, writes Hamish. That sounds nice. Yes, meddling in things can give you ass cancer like Biden. Fuck with the sun, get burnt. Mark writes, it's so hard not to be a doomer, but some days I'm just less optimistic. Look, it's not doomerism, right? Like, humanity is going to destroy itself. Like, the West is certainly going to destroy itself. We're way too stupid. We're institutionally stupid, right? Like, this story about this whole, like, let's block out the sun should tell you that we are institutionally stupid. We have institutionalized stupidity and made stupidity a virtue. And we want to be stupid, and we want to defend stupidity, and we want the people who run the place to be as stupid as possible. It's what we obviously want, and we obviously love it, and we're not actually ever going to stop doing it. And so it's not doomerism to state that is real. Like, that we are a deeply unintelligent, stupid people who refuse to even do the most basic work to understand even the most basic principles. And so my suggestion to you and to everybody who is falling into like this nihilistic or this kind of thing is to just live your life. Treat people around you with respect and dignity, right? Go to a protest, do whatever you feel like you need to do to find the catharsis you need to do. But like, go outside, spend time on the beach, right? Smoke some weed, live your life, right? Because humanity is going to careen towards this disaster whether you're angsting about it or not, right? We're going to smash headfirst into the iceberg of this disaster at full force, going like full throttle. We're not even going 100. We're like at 150%. We're going to smash into the side of this wall at the fullest possible force that we possibly can. And that's going to happen whether or not you're filled with angst or not. So my suggestion to you is go watch a movie, go date a girl, right? Just don't worry about the outcome. Right? Detach from the outcome. Because you're going to die. Like, your moment of death is coming. It's written on the stars. That fate has determined it, as it has for you and it has for me. That we're all going to die anyway. And that's true whether or not we angst about it or not. And so, when I go, probably one of the last things I'm going to say is, yeah, I told you fucking idiots. I'm going to look at the world and I'm going to be like, yep, fucking morons. And I'll bounce. And hopefully, if the universe is a lovely place, I won't come back. Hopefully I'll leave and just be like, hey, dude, can I go to a good place that's full of smart people? And hopefully the universe will be like, yeah, sure, you can go to a good place that's full of smart people. Why not? Like, because that's the most exhausting part about this place, is that we're only cosplaying as intelligent. We're actually very dumb. And that stupidity, like when we learn world history, it has this like sheen of like glory and intelligence, but really it's just a bunch of dumb monkeys. And now that we've got nuclear bombs and high technology and all this kind of stuff, we're just really making it obvious how stupid we are. That instead of using this technology to like build a beautiful world, instead of actually saying like, oh, hey, we could like really make something startling, we're just making 5 people super super rich. It's just stupid. Like, it's just dumb. Or a boy, Jeff, or a boy. You can date a boy if you like. That's fine. But just like these things are going to happen whether or not you cry about them or not. And like, my feeling is very simple, is that the universe and the earth is way more powerful than we are by orders of magnitude. Like, it's total human arrogance and it's total human hubris to say that we're going to destroy the planet. Like, no, we're not. Like, even if we literally blew it to pieces, over years it would just reform itself and it would become as it is now. Right? Like, people seem to forget that the earth created us and not the other way around. That we are born into its systems and not the other way around. That this place was a garden before we got here and not the other way around. And so when we go, or when we are decimated and diminished, the earth will heal itself and continue on its merry way. Renovation, good to see you, my man. You're right. So I understand this strays from Marxism, but why don't we deserve this? Yeah, no, we definitely deserve it. We for sure deserve it. Like, that's why I'm like, when I was younger, like when I was in my 20s, I was like full of more angst. I was full of more like more chutzpah. I was more like aghast and more passionate about like, we got to stop this. We got to do it. But like, we know. And we're choosing not to. Like, that's what it is. We've just decided that maintaining financial power for a small group of psychos matters more than maintaining our ability to live a sustainable future on the planet. And we are going to absolutely pay consequences for it. And the consequences will be dire. Like, it's going to be brutal. Like, I really can't overstate how insane it's going to get. It's going to be so crazy that the existence of the event occurring will be enough to break people, simply because it will exist outside of the scope of their imagination. They won't be able to handle what is happening. That's just what's going on. Well, and congratulations for you, Mark, getting having a new baby. JT, like an eldritch horror. Like, I think people might start to key into it once things like the Manhattan subway system will be unusable. Like, that to me is one of these things that I keep looking at. I keep thinking to myself, like, the Americans are doing absolutely nothing about climate change, right? They're doing absolutely fucking nothing. And there's just going to be a point where, like, this whole thing, right? This whole thing is going to be underwater, right? And lots of it is going to get drowned out. Like, look at New York, for God's sakes. Like, it's, like, right on the ocean. Water levels are going to go up. The Manhattan city subway system is going to become unusable. It's just going to become unusable. And they're going to spend hundreds of billions of dollars to mitigate the symptoms, right? They're going to break themselves trying to mitigate the systems. And eventually they're just going to be like, yeah, we can't actually do this. That the force of the ocean is more powerful than we are. And all of the money and all of the effort that we're putting in to these projects is just to build prisons, basically. Just have groups of armed men in big prisons, and that's what we're doing to deal with this situation. It's just like I don't think people will be able to handle it. Like we may live to see the ruins of New York, you know? And like a movie like Lost in New York with Snake is going to be like a prophecy. June writes, so every baby sloth and every baby koala deserves to die because of our inactions. Like, I mean, we deserve it. They don't. We bear that. That we bear that sin, right? Monsieur, I fear they are flying close to the sun. Floods of biblical proportions. Yeah, there's going to be those sorts of things. To me, it's going to be the famines. Like the famines are going to be the big one. I think that that's going to really you're going to see Americans, like Americans especially, because Americans are fat burger eaters. Uh, the famines are going to really, like fascism is going to balloon. Like Nazism is going to just go boom. And you'll have like incredible like militias, cults, all kinds of groups just pop up because of these famines that are 100% going to sweep through. And like we're not at all prepared for it. Our systems are not prepared for it. Our leadership is not prepared for it. We are going to absolutely eat ourselves alive. And just like the cults that pop up are going to be crazy. The insane death cults that are going to come out of it are just going to be everywhere. Like virulent and powerful. There's going to be Christian cults all over the place. People, literally people whose brains will be so broken that they think that they're prophets. Like just guys who are just doing a ton of acid, forming little cults here, there, and everywhere. Like, it's going to be a disaster. People are going to flee into the arms of these cults because these cults will have access to food. You'll have like a compound somewhere where they're like growing wheat or growing something, and they're able to feed their own people. Meanwhile, the corporations will have abandoned these places completely. And so people will just flood into the arms of these cult leaders. And forget about cults, like gangsters. Just like some farmer who's managing to get like decent crops grown on his property, and he'll just be a fucking gangster. Austin writes, John, do you have any book recommendations for us? I just jailbroke my Kindle, and I've been reading a ton of Marxist works. I mean, Black Shirts and Reds is always good to recommend. I did just recommend The Principles of Communism, Frederick Engels. That's on top of mind. I'm going through a book called Collapse right now, which is really interesting. It's about the collapse of the Soviet Union, specifically focusing on Gorbachev. I mean, man, I'm blanking. Really, anything that Richard Wolff has written is good. An easy recommend for me is basically all the works of Chris Hedges. Chris Hedges' entire anthology is good. I also easily recommend I recommend anything by Charles Dickens. What's really good about Charles Dickens is that he's a writer, and the reason why his works have persisted is that he writes about what industrialization did to people. and what the real impact of industrialization was. But he does it within this um, he does it within this storytelling narrative that's very like quiet. Uh, he's not like hammer. It's not a documentary. Like he's not hammering your head over it. It's just it's very obvious what's happening to people during this period of time of industrialization. Oh yeah, fraud, famine, and fascism by Douglas Tottle is an important one. Yeah, Michael Hudson. That's another good one. Uh, fraud, famine, and fascism is the source that I think people should read in order to see how bullshit the Holodomor narrative actually is. He's the guy that really points out, like, yeah, this shit comes from the desk of Joseph Goebbels. Like, this is Nazism. It's straight up just Nazi propaganda. My hope for myself is that the beekeeping initiative that I am doing is going to take root and is going to be successful, and I'm going to be able to achieve stuff with it. I'm going to be able to do something with it. And my hope is that year over year, I'll actually be able to transition away from this ridiculous capitalist existence into just taking care of bees and managing these bees and making sure that the natural course of pollination occurs. Like the place where I've put these bees, you guys, the place where I put these bees. Did I keep the picture up? Did I keep it alive? Yeah, I did. Like I had to put them. I had to. The beekeeper I was talking to was like, he wanted another week to really build the hive strong. And I went and saw it. What you're looking at here is just a small picture of one of the apple trees that exists on this property, and every little white dot you see there is a flower. And so these bees are just gonna pollinate the shit out of these trees, and they're having like a feast right now. Although it's been pretty rainy, so I bet it's a quiet day for them today. And I'm going to show up there a week later, and I'm going to super the hives. So that means expanding the hive so that they have more to grow in, and they're just going to become like a big, powerful, virulent hive. And then I'm going to put honey supers on it. We're going to get as much honey as we can out of them. And it's going to be great. It's going to be great. And the thing about beekeeping is that you are only limited by how much equipment you have. So if you have 100 boxes, you can get 100 hives. And of course the frames that you need. And so you can get into a place where you just start talking about building this stuff yourself. So you don't need to buy it. I'm just so looking forward to working these bees and like getting connected more to nature, getting more connected to, like, beekeeping is the perfect example of how capitalism doesn't innovate. Like, the person who there was this major discovery. It's one of the great American discoveries. And it was made by a fella by the name of Langstreth. He was a reverend who lived in Pennsylvania in literally like 1880. So it's like the newest discovery ever. And he devised, so up until that time, the way that you would beekeep is you'd have a wicker basket, and you just have the bees in the wicker basket, and the bees would basically build whatever they wanted in the wicker basket. And But the way that you would go get the honey uh, uh, is that at the end of the season, you would destroy the hive. So you'd tear the hive apart, kill the bees, basically, and then filter everything out to get the honey. So this guy Langstreth realized there is a certain space. It's 3/4 of an inch, I believe, or is it three? It's 3/8 of an inch that bees won't fill in. So if you leave a space 3/8 of an inch, bees won't fill that in with wax. And so he created a series of frames in a box, all measured at 3/8 of an inch, and sure enough, they don't fill that space. And so what that means is that you can pull frames, single frames, out of the hive and then replace them, and it doesn't disturb the hive. It doesn't destroy them. It doesn't rattle the bees so badly. And then he also made a discovery, because he was all about spacing, right? He also made a discovery that because queens, the bee responsible for laying all the eggs, the queen, is bigger than all of the other bees, you can put a grating on top of one of these boxes, and then put a box on top of that, and the queen won't be able to get up into it. All the other bees will. And so they'll fill that box up with only honey. And so you can come along and you can just pop that box off. No muss, no fuss. Bob's your uncle. And it won't have eggs in it. It won't have anything in it except honey. And so you can have this hive that is strong, that is well established, that is producing honey, and you never need to disrupt the hive. You never need to destroy it. You never need to rip it apart. You never need to do anything to cause it any problems whatsoever. And I'm just like, so it's this amazing discovery, and it's literally some reverend, some guy who does it, and he doesn't do it for profit. He doesn't do it for the profit motive. He does it because he thinks, I bet you we can do better for the bees. I bet you we can make this less destructive for the bees. That we don't need to kill the bees in order to get their honey. We can actually build a hive for them, the Langstreth hive, that they like, that they enjoy, that facilitates everything they need, while also accommodating our desire to get the honey from them without disrupting them. It's incredible. It's one of the most important discoveries, and it didn't happen by some businessman. It didn't happen because somebody was like, I know how to maximize profits. It happened because somebody was like working with bees and said, oh, I know how to make this better. Just human ingenuity. Like, I think one of the most demonic things that these capitalists do is that they try to claim human ingenuity as capitalist ingenuity. They try to take credit for human curiosity and human ingenuity and the human desire for improvement, and they try to claim that for themselves and say that the only reason anybody does anything is for personal profit or personal gain. Like, it's just the abandonment of humanity as an idea. Yeah, not that we haven't gone into fuck up bees, but if he didn't do that, imagine how far behind we'd be in 2025 with bees. Might already be extinct if Reverend Honeybee didn't think of some respect for the bees. Yeah, I don't think that they would be extinct, but they're just, we would definitely, like, our, like, honey would be way more expensive. We just have way less access to honey because it'd just be way harder to produce it. And our systems would be way behind in that regard. And it does mean that there would be certain things, like almonds is a big one. Almonds is a big one. Like, something like 60% of all hives in America go to California during almond pollination season. Like, it's just an enormous event in the year of pollinators. And so you would just have less almonds. Like, you'd have less access to almonds. And there's all kinds of things you'd have less access to. And like, I think the funniest thing that happened when I was learning beekeeping on the East Coast was they found a way to pollinate blueberry bushes in such a way that it could increase the yield of blueberries by a factor of 10. You could get 10 times more blueberries out of a bush by pollinating them with bees in a certain way at a certain time. And so all the beekeepers got super excited by this, and they all got ecstatic, and they all thought, oh man, we could get 10 times the amount of blueberries. Oh man, we're all going to make a fortune, right? But so they did. They all did this, and they increased their yields by a factor of 10. But the way the system works, if you increase the amount of a commodity but don't increase the demand for that commodity, what happens to the price of that commodity? It collapses. And so you ended up with all of these beekeepers that increased their yield by a factor of 10 and basically ended up making the same amount of money after they had to pay the beekeeper and after they had to pay for all those expenses, right? And so what's the end result? Blueberry farmers don't bother, right? So this is a very clear example of how capitalism stifles innovation, how capitalism makes it harder for us to increase yields and increase the amount of bounty. Because any rational person would say, oh, you can increase the amount of a yield by a factor of 10, and you can do that consistently, well, then we should at least use less land. Like, if the goal is to get the same amount of blueberries, well, we can do that with way less land now, right? We can do that with way less resources now. Nope, can't do that. Private ownership. It's just some farmer somewhere who gets to make all the decisions for himself, and everybody else is just told to go slag off. Oh, okay. Maybe we could at least make more blueberries and create a system to get those blueberries to people who are experiencing food scarcity. No, there's no profit in that. Poor people have no money, right? And so it's just one of these moments where I was like, so we did it. We innovated. Capitalism innovated and created an innovation to increase its yields enormously, and nobody does it. Why? Because it doesn't pay out. Radio Halifax writes, John, have you ever been to Sheffield Mills in Nova Scotia? I have not. I have not. All right, guys. I'm going to call this one pretty early because I got to wake up pretty early tomorrow. Always a pleasure to have each and every one of you here. Thank you for coming in here. It's a miracle to me that anybody listens to me every time I hit the record. I'm blessed that you guys are here listening. Go out into the world and live your life. Spread joy into the world. Try to make people laugh. Try to just be happy and have love, because it's a chaotic, ridiculous situation, and we're going to hit some brick walls as a people. And always remember, each and every one of you is a quantum being walking around in quantum energy. These billionaires are spending hundreds of billions of dollars in the hopes you'll never realize it. You'll just stay the good little commodity they need you to be. Revolt. Rebel. Repent. Good luck. We're going to need it.